right, Grand Rising, Darshan Shalom, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Welcome to everybody. Bakwatav. Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. Ni hao, namaste, osayona kituaya, Ohio, I see you. Manut, Habarigani, Akwaba, Itase, Jambo Bimini Kofi, Nina Franco Katana Wewe, Bakwatav, Tada Yaslen, Kwam Yaslen, Ana Kofi, head of the Servants of Christ, Mashalam Hey. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor of Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we are appreciative to have you on with us today. One more again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all honor and praise to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. To the moderators who I bow down to, thank you so much. To the ministerial staff who bless us so much. To S.O.C, and we're dealing with membership right now. To Lottie Dying, everybody, if you agree, if you disagree with us, if this is your first time, one time of many, etc., we appreciate your presence, and we're so thankful and grateful to be able to chill out and talk and hang out some. And we're finishing up the 7 F's as far as each of the words that begin with F. Today we're going to do the last one. We're going to talk about facts, and then what I need from you guys for tomorrow is we're going to do Q&A. So when we talk about membership now, Q&A, different things as far as how we operate, different things for what we're looking for, questions on faith, even though we do have a bunch of stuff on YouTube, like our FAQ series. And of course, Having Been Led as We Believe, the series we did a while back, to be able to back up more things and get into things that are, more succinct, that are more specific, that are not as broad, that might be able to answer a few of your questions. But still, what I would like for you guys to do, if you guys don't mind, is try to see if you can have as many questions for us as possible, because it will not just be questions for you. Maybe even you want to give a question that others have, even if it's not your question, because what we'll be able to do is when somebody goes through membership, and if somebody uses these recordings to help us out, besides what myself and the ministerial staff might be able to give, also too, they'll be able to look at these questions that we go through tomorrow, and they'll be able to actually listen to different perspectives. Amen. So if you can, please have questions, comments, and concerns for today as well. But tomorrow will be specifically just Q&A based off of the membership series. And so at that point, you guys can just fire away with just about anything. And I will do my best to answer as best as I'm able to. But thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you. Let's say hello, everybody, real quick, and let's jump on in. How you doing, Sister Joy? How you doing, Jay? JH? Stephen? Sister Nadine, Sister Renee, Sister Sherry, DB, Sunny Day. How's everybody doing? Thank you for being on. Those that are coming on, we appreciate you. So we're in the midst of this membership series, or we're basically finishing up. We're on the 7th F today. Just to make you aware of what they are, we do have a playlist on YouTube if you actually want to go back, if you're interested in actually getting the context, if you don't know these already or haven't been with us this week. How you doing, Sunshine? This is what these 7 F's are. We talked about first, faith, right? Then we talked about family. Then we talked about food. Next F is fortune. Foundation. Fasting is what we talked about yesterday. And then today we will talk about facts. F-A-C-T-S, facts. And how you doing, Brother Vincent? So we've had a great time in this. I've had a great time in this. I've learned and gleaned and cried and all types of stuff during this. And we appreciate you all. Don't forget, we've been doing some other stuff. If you've missed some of the live sessions, some of the other things that we do, we've been recording them, especially some of them on Patreon. So if you want to go back on Patreon, or some of them on YouTube as well, and be able to find out what's going on and listen to some of the things to catch up on some of the stuff you might have missed, we praise y'all that you will. Ministerial staff, I will make a decision today as to whether or not we're going to meet on Tuesday or Thursday, and those who are going to be helping out with the Feast of Tabernacles. Also, too, as just to give you a heads up, not everybody might have gotten the link yet, but we are looking at using WhatsApp and using that as something that can be, we already have different text strains, and people are using Discord and stuff within S.O.C, but we're going to use that as well. So we have a WhatsApp that's going to be for the women, a WhatsApp link that's going to be, so WhatsApp link for the women, a WhatsApp link for the men. We'll have a WhatsApp link for everybody at S.O.C. And we want you guys to just be aware of that. So you should be getting the link at some point. And we praise Yah for the opportunity to be in front of you again. Also, as a reminder, we're looking at July 1st, this Saturday. Everybody, if you're in Georgia or if you're close enough to it, we are looking at, you should be getting specifics today as far as address and all that stuff. We're looking at doing a meetup with everybody in Georgia. So if you're in Georgia, please, ma'am, please, sir, if you're able to, it's going to be about 2:00. It's going to be somewhere in between Southern Georgia. I forget the place, the city, but it's going to be somewhere place in between Southern Georgia and Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, think about an hour and a half down, probably. If you're in Southern Georgia, think about probably an hour to an hour and a half up. And if you're in Alabama or somewhere close, maybe even South Carolina, whatever, and you feel like coming down, I know that's a lot of traveling for some of us more than others. But if you want to come and join us, feel free to do that. We will do a physical meetup with me being there. Of course, we keep advocating for people to feel free to meet up, as a lot of you are doing already in person. And we thank y'all for that. I believe we have it official too. If so, it's official now. We will be in Houston. We'll try to see if we can meet up in Dallas possibly, but we will be in Houston. I believe it's going to be September 14th through the 17th. The 15th and the 16th, I will be busy. So we will either have to meet probably on the 17th. So if you're in Texas, if you're looking at possibly meeting up with us down there, that'll be the week before we get ready to, or a couple weeks before, 3 weeks before, excuse me, we get ready to meet up in down south for our Feast of Tabernacles. So if you would like to be able to meet up with us there, feel free to do that. All right. Everything else is still up in the air. We're looking at South Florida at some point. I just got to raise the money for it, but we're looking at that at some point. Right. S.O.C. stands for Servants of Christ, but it doesn't mean that we are Christian. If that makes sense. If it doesn't, stick around long enough, you'll probably be able to see what we're talking about. But how you doing, Beezer, and everybody who's on? How you doing, Swagger? All right, Grand Rising, let's get into this. So today we're going to talk about facts. And once again, tomorrow there's going to be Q&A. We've done this now for 7 straight live sessions. Last 7 I've been over and been charged with. So if you have Q&A on any of the stuff having to do with membership, what we mean, different things, even if you're not going to become a member, but you just have questions in general on things we've been teaching. Like I said, you can go to the playlist on YouTube that's called Haven't Been Led As We Believe. You can go to another playlist on YouTube called Q&A, called FAQ. We even have something on there called Questions for Kofi, if you want to look on there as well. But if you would like to be able to ask specific questions tomorrow, we'll be on tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. As long as we go, sometimes we just go for hours, whatever we're led to. But we'll make sure that we answer those questions specifically. All right. Feel free to have questions, comments, or concerns about today, of course. But just if you want questions in general about a lot of stuff we've been talking about, feel free to do that. How you doing, Minister Samay Larray? How you doing, Minister Shantae? And thank you again for teaching this rising and being open with us. Oh, and to the sisters, we had a great turnout. From what I was told, we had a great turnout for the women's meeting this past Saturday. Thank you so much. Keep it up. From what I was told, it was the biggest turnout we've had probably ever for the women's meeting. So thank you, sisters who showed up, and we appreciate you. And prayerfully, we'll get some of the sisters that might not have been there the last time to come on and join up. It's apparently they're using, you guys are using one of my books, 21 Days of Motivation. And so we're excited about that as well. Thank you for even thinking that you would use something like that. How you doing, Sister Toya? How you doing, Brother Vincent? How you doing, Scorpion Queen? All right, J-Mag, everybody. I think Abdul. Is it Abdul? Thank you for being part of the community. Okay, let's get into this. How you doing, King? All right, so let's get into today. Today we're talking about facts. The importance of facts is important. As part of the last pillar of our 7 pillars, the last of our 7 F's for this membership series, we're talking about facts, right? We say it all the time, facts. Somebody says something, facts, right? We always have these facts, but why are facts and what do facts mean for us? Okay, facts. That which we say and teach must be true. Truths on their own are not enough, though. Context is key. I'm gonna repeat that real quick because we got to lay out facts. Facts are important, right? Facts are important, but they're not important just within themselves, right? Let me say that again. That which we say and teach must be true. Truths on their own are not enough, though. Context is key. Truth without context means that it becomes propaganda. Amen. And Sister Toy, we're still praying for you. Hopefully all is going well, as well as it can. How you doing, Sister Oslin? I'm going to say that part again, right? Truth without context means that it becomes propaganda. Speaking of propaganda, it is okay to use the media to our advantage. We should use every opportunity to embolden our people to wear their hair, flaunt their noses, love their melanin, exhort their color, and push our culture. We will not teach his story. Our story will be the standard. Uh-oh. I might have lost some people right there because people don't hang around long enough to realize that we respect all cultures. But hear what I'm saying. We're just going to keep it real from the beginning, right? We should use every opportunity to embolden our people, that means nation, to wear their hair, flaunt their noses, love their melanin, exhort their color, and push our culture. We will not teach his story. And that's in quotes, even written in quotes. We will not teach his story. Our story will be the standard. The story will be the foundation, right? We will not teach his story. Our story will be the standard. The story will be the foundation. Let us go through our story and find that which is hidden and make it common for generations to come. Do I believe that Yahushua died for my sins? Yes. That being said, we still need to get into facts today, right? Praise Yah. Okay. I'm with you, right? I'm with you more than what you know. Let's just hang in there long enough, right? I guess if you're saying if I don't believe, you can't listen, but even in that, that's something where we have a problem with facts, because once again, facts within themselves don't mean anything, because there's a lot of people that believe that who you call Jesus died for your sins, but their context, their life doesn't show it. Not everybody who comes to me and says, Lord, Lord, right? Is that Matthew 7? Not everybody that comes to me saying, Lord, Lord, right? That's a fact. But now we got to add the context. So yes, I believe that Yahushua, which is his actual name, or some people say Yeshua, Yahushua, 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 whatever, right? Those are different dialects. I won't get into that right now. But yes, you can believe that he died for you, and still the context, your life, might not match with the fact. How you doing, Brother Thomas? Big Brother Thomas. How you doing, Sister Deborah? See, so this is why we just said facts within themselves don't mean much if you have no context. Right? Fact is that we should love all human beings. Context, though, is that there are certain human beings that have been mismanaged and misused and misappropriated because of the color of their skin. Thank you very much. It is Matthew 7:21. Thank you, Sister Nadine. Right? So the fact is, yes, all human beings should get along. The context, though, is that there's certain human beings. And by the way, let's not just talk about black skinned people. What about Irish people that were misused by the United Kingdom? And still the United Kingdom, the English, are still in their territory in Northern Ireland. Oh, heading back home? Okay, be safe. I thought you had already gotten back. I didn't realize you went to another. Oh, that's right, because you stopped here going to the other place. My bad. Hey, man, be safe out there, right? So there's context that should come with facts. There should be contextual facts. Do I believe that his return is imminent? Yes. Okay. And I believe that we know that what needs to happen in order for his return. Once again, that's a context fact thing, right? The fact he will come back. But what's the context of his coming back? What's the context? What does Matthew 24, verse 14 tell us? What does Matthew chapter 24 say, verses 1 through 14? What does Matthew chapter 24, verse 13 say that it is necessary for you to be saved? Why do we only go to Romans chapter 10, verse 9 about being saved? And we never talk about Romans chapter 10, verse 1 being saved. We never talk about Romans 10, 13 being saved. We never talk about Matthew chapter 24, verse 13 being said. The fact is that, yes, you must be saved, right? But even Romans 10:10 says what? That you must also do what? You must also be somebody who's dealing, here's context. You must also be somebody who realized that being saved is the first step, but you're still on your way to righteousness. That means right lawful standing. And you're still on your way to what? Salvation. That means being salvaged. And the T-I-O-N makes it a noun, a person, place, a thing. Yahweh, through his son Yahushua, and through Ravach HaKodash, the Holy Ghost working in us, is trying to get us to be salvaged. That means to be to your original intent. And many of us, and really none of us, have ever seen our original intent, because our original intent is perfection. You said baptism? Okay. If it says that you must be baptized to be saved, but you can be saved before you get baptized. See the context, the facts. I'm with you on the facts. You see what I'm saying? I'm not coming at you, by the way. I'm just trying to show we do a lot of stuff of fact, but we spit fact. He's spitting facts. She's spitting facts. But where's the context that goes with the fact? How you doing, Sister Tracy? And thank you, Minister Samaya LeRae. I'm sorry I didn't see that you put it up there too. Appreciate you. right? So a lot of people give fact, but we are very lost when it comes to context. Now, if I be honest, some people are frustrated and get upset and get angry and just are tired with always having to give context to people because they're like, it's not my responsibility. But see, you can't talk about being a teacher. How you doing, Brother Keith? How you doing, Sister Arena? We can't talk about being teachers of this and being teaching even through your life, and you have no context of the fact. Right. Let me give an example because everybody's going in different ways, and I love it. I love it, by the way. But let me give an example of something I was given by the Hakodash for today. She was showing me. She had me get up, and I was looking at all these different things. And one of the things I saw was there was a woman who decided that she was going to be a trans man and took 8 years to physically transition. So now she's not, or now she is not a she. I guess they would say that they are a man now, right? Or they would proclaim they're a he now. How you doing, Brother Yee? How you doing, Shalom? So they were talking about how difficult it is to now be a man. And they were talking about men don't have anywhere to go. Women go to the other side of the street with this, that, whatever, and they don't feel like they're loved now that they have become fully transitioned to a man. That's what they were saying. How you doing, Sister Monica? Now, that's a fact. There's a lot of stuff that comes with being a man, but what's the context that you're dealing in? Number one, you're dealing with something to where you've lived your life as a woman. So she keeps talking about men are emotionally unavailable and I don't have men to talk to. When I was a woman, we could talk in the bathroom and we could unite and stuff and we could be doing our makeup, but you weren't having deep conversations while doing your makeup. You could smile, you could say hello, you could have some really nice surface level conversation, but that wasn't in depth. But you've come over to being, so you say, come over to being a man. Well, when you came over to being a man, guess what happened? Here's the context. You say fact. This is what they say. I'm not going off. I'm just being, I'm telling you what they said. How you doing, Sister Judith? They said they're a man now. So if we're going to say that that's the fact, okay, that you have transitioned and you are looked at, most people see you as a man. You even gone through stuff to deepen your voice, all this stuff. So you look like, and this is for educational purposes only, of course. And you look like this, you look like that. So everybody assumes you're a man. All right. Right. Even though there are some people that probably can tell, but nevertheless, everybody for the most part says that you're a man, and you can't get women to talk to you now, and you're frustrated, and you feel like you're lonely. But men don't really talk to. Like she was like, or this person was like, when I was a woman and I was in the bathroom, we'd had these conversations. Well, in the bathroom, men ain't really talking to each other like that. Like men don't pull up to the urinal and be talking while we both, you know, while we're both using the bathroom. That's not something we do. We don't talk through the, well, I don't think sisters necessarily do this. I don't know. That's been a long time since I was a little boy going to the women's bathroom. How you doing, Sister Dejan? How you doing? Yeshua, the true King of Earth. Praise Yah. So context is key. Men are just as emotional as women are. Right. Matter of fact, a lot of men have been told they're not even supposed to show certain emotions, even in front of their wives and their children. Not saying it's correct, but it's the context. So if you go in the bathroom and you said when you were a woman, you used to have this type of conversation in the bathroom, but men don't converse in the bathroom, right? A woman can be at the store. Here's context. This is not me saying anybody's better or worse. This is just context that goes with what you say the fact is, right? How you doing, Charles? If I'm going to if my wife is at the store and she's with some of the sisters here at S.O.C., right? If one of the sisters at S.O.C. is getting some underwear, my wife and some other sisters might be like, "Oh, girl, that's cute." If I'm at the store with my boys at S.O.C. and if somebody pick up some underwear, ain't no brother gonna be like, "Bro, that's probably gonna look great on you." Right? That's like, it's a different context. It doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It just means that our emotions are different in that moment. How we look, how we think about things is going to be different in that moment. How you doing, Marlon? Right? It's not saying that one's better or one's worse. It just means that we operate different. Right? If a woman is trying on clothes at that same clothing store, there might be a woman that says, "Girl, you look cute now. You look this." There might be a man that says, "Bro, where you get that shirt from?" But we're not really gonna be like, "Bro, man, your butt looking tight in that." Girl might be like, "Shoot, I like your shape in that, girl. Keep doing what you're doing." And it's innocent, right? But you don't do that, right? It's normal to see boys go to a clothing store, right, and their mother is trying on clothes. And if he's young enough, he goes in the back with her. As a man, even if I got my daughter with me, it looks a little weird to see a little girl go to the back where men are changing clothes, right? Those are facts, but there's also context with it, right? The way society and certain societies and certain cultures work, there's context to it. So we have all these things where people are bringing up facts, but nobody's talking about context. And here's where I'm trying to get is that ultimately, this is why membership with S.O.C. and we remembering who we are. Remember, not recalling, but remembering, coming back into membership. We were a body, we were a nation, we were a branch of Zion, we were Yashra'al, and we got dismembered, cut off, and now we're coming back into membership. How you doing, Sister Betty? So we're coming back, we're remembering, right? And in our culture, there are certain things. And I want you to think about something. This really hit me when I was walking on my way over here, this rising. I want you to think about the preachers that are out today. I really want you to think about the preachers that are out today. Right? Now, why am I saying that? I want you to think about it because a lot of preachers no longer give facts. And if they give facts, they definitely don't give context. How you doing, Sister Knight? Can I say that again? A lot of people say, man, you are smarter, you're educated, you're this, you're that. And really, if you think about what you're saying that, hey, you give me context that I've never had before. Not that I'm better than anybody. It's not that I am a better person necessarily than anybody, right? But I give a context that a lot of people don't give, right? And that causes people to think in a manner in which they've never thought before, because we should be given context with everything that we're talking about. Correct? Right? If you want to be taught something, the best way to teach something correctly is to ensure that context is always king. And a lot of us are getting a lot of word without a lot of context. You're getting a lot of word, zero context, right? You're getting a lot of scriptures, zero context, right? You're talking about Genesis, don't know about a shut. You're talking about John 14, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. And you're hearing it preached only at funerals and never hearing anybody talk about the fact that Yahushua is talking about marriage, because in our culture, the husband goes to prepare a place for his wife and he goes to his father's property and puts an add-on to his father's house. It's called a mansion. Also, the word house means family. So when Yahushua says beloved, first of all, that word would have been Davad, or the name that you call David. David means beloved. So every time you see that word beloved, it actually would be the word David. David is Judah. David was the king of Judah. That's why the Lion of the tribe of Judah is coming out of David's bloodline. Right. And so he's coming out of that bloodline. Right. And so coming there representing that bloodline, you must also recognize, right, the value of what's coming out as far as he's saying, hey, those of you who are of David's bloodline, those of you who are at the kingdom of Judah, especially those of you now, we're going to be honest about Judah, Benjamin, and the Levitical priesthood. Now where he's saying, hey, David, beloved, right? Let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me, right? If you believe in Abba, believe in me. Why? Because I'm one and the same. In my Father's house, in my Father's family, there are many mansions. I'm going to make sure that all of you can be in this relationship or this marriage, right? The spiritual marriage with me. All right. If it was not so, I would not have told you. I promise you this is true. I go to prepare a place for thee, that where I go, you can be with me also. It's talking about marriage. There's context to it that many of us were never taught. We had a fact, we had a scripture, but we had no context. How you doing, Money Green? And how you doing, Big Roy? And many of us are still walking around without context. Many people are preaching or proclaiming something without context. Many people are trying to make sure that they can have better lives without context. Fact, you should live a great life. Context, how do you get there? How you doing, Sister Beverly? Men are from Mars, women from Venus. Hey, yep, context, right? There's no great men left. Men mistreat women. That's all they do. Which men? Context, right? Where did you meet him? What did you discuss? Did you date? Yeah, we dated and we met at the church and we went to singles ministry. Your church was messed up. They had bad context because in your Bible, there's no such thing as dating. Uh-oh. But see, lack of context. So fact, you got married. Context. What does it mean? Contextual facts. Let me read you again, right from the website. That which we say and teach must be true. Truths on their own are not enough, though. Context is key. You cannot open the door to a fact if there is no context. If context is key and the fact is the door, then you cannot you cannot get to the door of what the fact actually means for you if you have no context to open it. We're glad you're over here too. Appreciate it. How you doing, Mustard Seed? Shalom to you. Shalom to everybody coming on. How you doing, Gus Sissy? A lot of us want a fact to work for us, but we have no context to open up the fact. The United States is a place that people are in. True. Is it a physical place? No, because it's a corporation. How you doing, Apostle? Grand rising to you. Shalom, peace. And to your wife as well, if she's listening. Right? Context is key. Context is what opens the fact. It opens the door. So if you realize the United States is a corporation, you not realize it's a board, and you realize that it's publicly traded, then you realize it's not a country. How you doing, Brother Allen? Thanks for being with us again today. You see, so a lot of people keep talking about facts, but you have no context. People talk about psychology, but they won't tell you that the word psyche in the Greek or psyche, it literally means the soul. So how can you talk about someone's psychology and you never have any discussion about one's soul? How can you have somebody that said they don't believe in a soul, but they say that you should know about somebody's psychology? It can't happen. Context is the key that opens the door to the fact. Whether people agree with the fact, disagree with the fact, whatever, that's on them. But context is key. Yahshua said before he said baptize, what did he say? He said go. Everybody goes to Matthew 28:19, right? And forgets the first word, go. But we say if you want to get baptized, you got to come. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. You have to come in my direction, right? But Yahshua says go. No, I didn't hear about the aliens coming in. In all honesty, I don't know if I'm the person to talk to about that. I don't know if I have enough in me. I've learned a lot of stuff about it, but I don't know if I'm the person to talk to about that, in all honesty, right? Not saying I believe or disbelieve aliens. I don't know enough about the Anunnaki, the alien, the this, to that, whatever the things that people say are written down, but we don't have the actual written documentation, So I don't know. All right. How you doing, Sister Gertrude? How you doing, Sister Latoya? So I'm buffering every other word on YouTube. Am I buffering on YouTube? On YouTube, I don't know how much more I can do. If I'm buffering on YouTube, I don't have much in the way of signal for you outside of what I'm giving you right now. How you doing, Prince? Am I all right on TikTok? Can you hear me? Can you see me all right? Right. But people are supposed to be coming to get contextual facts. Okay. On YouTube, am I buffering every other word for everybody? You're supposed to make sure you have contextual facts. How you doing, Chad? Thanks for being on. Chad Crick. I don't know. Right? So you have to have context with your facts. Thank you, guys. You're supposed to have context with your facts. And people lack context. Right? People say, so here's one of the things people do. See, you guys are trying to say you're the real Jews. You are liars. You are reverse racists. Well, question for you. Have you ever watched a video from the 1800s or the 1900s, before 1940s, and seen what the people that were there look like? Now, we could say, well, they were already scattered all over the place. I mean, to a certain extent, sure. But have you seen the Israelites that were still there, the Palestinians that are our cousins? Have you seen what they look like? Not just modern, but back then. See, it's easy to say, right? It's easy to, okay, cool. It's easy to say that we're just making up stuff, or you can say, well, the people who are there now don't look like you. That's a fact, but what's the context? I mean, I don't even have to go to a place. I mean, do I need to talk about what Sephardic Jews were said that they looked like before they put them in slavery and forced them to stop being Israelites or by faith and told them that they had to be Roman Catholic? Which is why you have a lot of people who are here, even in this part of diaspora, who are Roman Catholic. I mean, 1925, you got 1800s, you got 1930, you got some from the 1940s, you got some from the first from 19 through 1900 to 1910. I mean, you can look it up for yourself. So if I can look at this and see, and by the way, this was stuff that nobody cared about it being put out there because the people there, to them, Israel didn't mean much back then. Now that somebody else came over there, we say Israel means everything that it meant in the Bible. Did it ever stop mattering? Did the people who were Israelite, did they ever stop mattering? Why did they only matter when we said, now these are the Israelites? These are the Jews we should think of. Not the Sephardic Jews, but now we should think of Ashkenazi or Khazarian. That's a fact, but also there's context. Look at the 1900 Olympics as well. I don't think I've seen that one, but thank you. I haven't seen that one. How you doing, Ernie's Hart? Thanks for being on. I'll try to see if I can remember to look that up. Right, but this is stuff that's contextual. See, we don't want context without facts, and I don't want facts without context. Give me contextual facts. Once again, let me just read. That which we say and teach must be true. Truths on their own are not enough, though. Context is key. Truth without context means that it becomes propaganda. How you doing, Keith? Thanks for being part of the community. If I didn't say so already, right? Truth, and I'm sorry, Keith Campbell. We got a couple Keiths on now. Praise y'all, right? Truth without context becomes propaganda. A fact without any context to it becomes propaganda. Really, I should really just say facts without context because propaganda, because a facts without context is usually not true. How you doing, Minister Tamara? A facts without any context is usually not true. And this is one of the problems that we have, right? You go to your churches on Sunday. When you went yesterday, for some of you, you heard a bunch of facts, but where was the context? And was the context proper? And this is where we had to be careful. See, Yehoshua says that context is key. See, you can give somebody a fact, but still not give them context. And when you do that, he would call it a stumbling block. He would call you a hypocrite or a hypocrite. See, hyper means I'm above. Hypo means I'm beneath. So if I'm beneath something, hypo, what am I beneath? The criteria. You are underneath the criteria that you say you live. Why? Because you might have a fact, here's the criteria, but you live underneath it. The context is messed up. You can be hypercritical, you can be hypocritical, sure. He didn't say you were hyper. Right? He said you were hypo, you were beneath. So you could even say, if you want to use that as a new term or whatever, or you want to put that as the word, you could say you live underneath your own criticisms. You criticize others, but you live underneath. We could say it like that. Sure. Right? That's when you have fact. You telling people this is what the Bible says. You telling people this is what America says. You telling people this is what Africa said. You telling people this is what Kemet said. You're telling people this is what black men really should be. You're telling people this is really what black women should be. But you live underneath it. This is why it's difficult for people to talk about people like Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar Johnson spits real stuff, but man, we found out you live underneath what you say, right? I'm not saying that you can't make mistakes, but you didn't even make it a point when you got caught doing stuff. Instead of saying what was real, you said, man, it shouldn't have been anybody else to out. It should have been the white man to out me. It shouldn't have been y'all to out me. And I get that. I guess you're saying we should protect our leaders, and you consider yourself to be a leader, and I would consider you to a certain degree to be a leader, but you should have at that point stepped up and lived up to the criticism and said, if I criticize them for that, I can at least say, I'm sorry. You could at least say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Scorpion Queen. What you apologizing for? Sorry. I don't even know what you're apologizing for. Praise God. Right. But I'm just saying, I must have missed a comment. But I'm just saying, right? We have people that are living underneath. Right. If I'm going to say, that's why I told you guys, right? If my marriage, for whatever reason, if something happens to my marriage besides death doing us part, I cannot ever be the reason for it. If I am, right? If I become the reason why my marriage doesn't work, guess what? Right? If it's something that I am responsible and should be held accountable for, then guess what? I am a hypocrite, because I can't sit up here and tell you guys about how strong marriages should be and how it's going to help our community. Thank you for the love. How you doing, Paul? I can't tell you all these different things and then I never live up to the criteria. I would be a hypocrite. You see, I would be somebody who lives underneath what I say. How you doing, Darius? Right? We must make sure that our facts meet context every time, or else it's just propaganda. Now, can many powerful things be done with propaganda? Like, let me be honest with you. There are our NOI brethren, Black Muslims, and I'm not going to hold you. Even though there's certain things that are not true that they teach, they have at least instilled some kind of sense of pride in a lot of our people. Not going to hold you, right? Propaganda can work, but then when you start looking at what's actually happening in that part of the diaspora, then you get to a place where propaganda is not complete as far as context, which means now we're losing people. They're becoming a stumbling block. They get you in the door, but they're also a stumbling block. See, Yahushua said it's better for you not to cause the little ones to stumble. How you doing, DeMarcus? Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, most pastors don't explain. Christians or Jehovah's Witnesses that which don't exist in the Bible anyway. Yeah, Cristianos or Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, we should be witnesses of Yahweh, but that's not what they necessarily teaching, right? But the context. So I could say, like, I was born and raised a Jehovah's Witness. So I could tell you, they teach you how to study. A lot of my study habits come from them. They teach you how to be able to talk to people door to door and face to face and on the street corners and all that. So, matter of fact, I love it when I actually meet one and I have time. Sometimes I don't have time, but if I have time, I'll sit there, I'll talk to them out of respect, because I know what it's like to have a door slammed in your face, or people running away from you, or you sat in the corner, or some of them now, they be at the airport. They used to be in the airport. I think they stopped that in the 70s or 80s or whatever. But, I know what it is to be trying to talk to somebody or knocking on the door, and people who are grown. I'm sitting there 6 years old and people are like doing cartwheels and stuff, canes in their hand, can't move. All of a sudden they doing cartwheels, jump behind the couch and tell somebody turn the light off. So I give them time if I can, and I like to have conversation back and forth with them, and I like to be able to tell them, hey, you don't even necessarily believe what you believe, because I know the context. I know what insight to the scriptures is. I know what a Russellite is. Right. I know when you became Jehovah's Witnesses after the second leader messed things up and had to change it again. I know that you said the end of the world was supposed to be 1914, 1996, the year 2000, 2020. I know that now you got a bunch of different, just like there's a bunch of different Christians, right? Christian groups. There's a bunch of different Jehovah's Witnesses groups. Right. So I can talk to them. I like the conversation, and I like to be able to have conversation, and they can still teach me a little something. I'm not beyond being taught by somebody just because we don't have the same faith or nation, right? But context is key. Propaganda can get you certain places, but propaganda is not designed to lead you into truth. We used the scripture the other day. What is it? Revelation chapter 3. I don't know if it's verse 6. I believe it's verse 7. I'm not Revelation, excuse me. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses either 6 or 7, where it says that that there are people who are always learning, ever learning, but never coming into the knowledge of the truth. Context, I like that. That's a shirt for somebody right there. Context, I like that. KAN space text or KAN dash text, right? But it's real. How you doing? Yeah, I like that. I might have to do something with that. I might have to borrow that from you, right? We have to work something out behind the scenes if we do, right? If you see us wearing a shirt one day and says context, we might have to talk to you a little something behind the scenes. Praise y'all, right? But I'm just saying, we have all these different things, and people don't want to go into what context actually is. And even if you look up the CONTEXT, it's free. Okay, right? Even if you look at the CONTEXT, con actually means to be one with. So if I'm going to give you context, I should be one with the text. Did you know that? If I'm talking about context, then the text, even if you want to call it verbal text, if you will, right? But the things that are written in the spirit, upon my heart, upon my forehead, upon my doorpost when you come in the house, the things that are on my shirt, the things that are in the Bible, the things that are in your scrolls, etc. You should be one with the text. If you're not one with the text, context, then guess what? Then it's not going to end up being real as far as the facts that you spit. You have to live what you say. You have to live the fact. How you doing, Sister Nadine? This is where our problem comes in. You ready? Peep game. Our problem is that there are no, it's not that there are no facts. May I say that again? Our problem is not that there are no facts. Our problem is not that facts are not being spoken. Our problem is that people are not one with the text. That is your biggest problem. You're not one with the text or the interpretation of the fact. You don't have a key being one with the text that allows you to be able to actually open up what the fact means. How you doing, Miracle? You hear what I'm saying? This is what our problem has become, is that we are not one with the fact context. We're not, context means I must be one with the text. When I interpret the text correctly, now it can become a fact, or at least a fact that I can use. There are a lot of people that talk about there's 46 presidents, but no, there's 54. Okay, I'm glad that you know that. Now, what are you doing to be one with that, or to execute where you could be one with that information and not allow certain things to mess up your mind? Why is that even important as far as being private citizen versus public? What is if you know about a 14th Amendment citizen, what are you doing to be one with the text that allows you to be private and not public? See, you can have information, but if you never have context, what's the point? How you doing, Sister Tora? How you doing, Sister Dre? A lot of people, once again, they have many facts, but zero context. Fact that you and the person that you were with, you had a bad relationship. What's the context? Why is it everybody else's fault but your own? How have you been in 25 relationships and all 25 people were the problem and you were never part of it? Something's not making sense. See, you gave me a fact. 25 people broke up with you, and this one did this, and this one did this, and this. But if I talk to all 25, and all 25 said that this is what you were doing, well, then I must recognize that therefore there's some context missing, right? How you doing, Divine Feminine? Right? There must be some context missing. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. Right? I talk to so many people, one-on-one coaching, life coaching, marital coaching, and I hear all this stuff about how every relationship they've been in, everybody else was the problem. But I'm like, but everywhere you go, there you are. Is there nothing that you got out of that? Is there nothing you learned? Is there nothing that you're going to be better in? If nothing else, is there something that you're attracting? See, we talk about the law of attraction. That's a fact. But what are you attracting? See, that's the context. How you doing, Minister Tamon? How you doing, Miss Somebody? Detailing Collins, how you doing? Right? Like the law of attraction. You keep attracting. I'm going to just use your terminology for some of you. You attracting good for nothing Negroes, and some of y'all don't use the word Negro. Well, if you attracting all these good for nothing Negroes, what about you is attracting good for nothing? Uh-oh. How you doing, Ryan? Shalom. I mean, are we going to talk about that at all? Does that get to be part of the conversation at all? Or is it just going to be everybody you come into contact with is good for nothing Negro? You said great grandpapa say if you don't have a problem, then you are the problem. Okay, amen. I'm with you. Took me a minute. I'm with you, sis. Praise y'all. That's excellent, right? How you doing, Gertrude? Great grandpapa, he knew what he's talking about, right? If you always have no problem, if you have nothing that needs to be better, then you're a problem. You're problematic. A cell that doesn't regenerate is a problem. Cells that keep not regenerating or regenerating mess is a problem. You would call that cancerous. Not trying to call anybody cancerous, just for educational purposes only. But I'm just saying, if I had a cell in my body, right, and it wasn't regenerated, it would die. If my body doesn't regenerate, it dies. If you're going to be in the body, in the membership, in the body of believers in Radas Shamayam or in the kingdom of heaven or in humanity or whatever you're trying to associate with, right? And you're not regenerating, you're not bringing things to life, you're not living better, you're not becoming greater than you were yesterday, then you causing whatever body you're a member of to die. You make the body sick. The energy you put out is usually the energy you attract. Yeah. So in the law of attraction, everybody loves the law of attraction. Thank you, Breeze. Appreciate you. So everybody loves the law of attraction. So question, if you're going to be dealing with the law of attraction, what are you attracting? I can see somebody being attracted. And look, I'm not saying that you can't be righteous and somebody that's bad won't be attracted to you, even though they're evil. No, what I'm saying is if it's the same person, you either have to say you're attracting people, or can I be honest with you? You might have to admit that you are attracted to something. Look, let's not act like people aren't attracted to bad boys. Right? Let's not pretend now. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a buck. Let's not act like some people don't see. You didn't see people with the leather jacket and the Fonzie like hair. Some of y'all, depending on your culture, right? And you thought, oh, that was attractive, or you saw the cat that was out there that was sitting up there calling women B's and H's, but he had money, he had gold chains, he was a rapper, and you said, oh, that's attractive. Let's not act like there weren't women out there on the dance floor or in their houses even, or with their children, talking about to the windows, to the wall. And what was the next part? I don't even got to sing it. Y'all already singing it in your head. To the sweat drip down, just for educational purposes. So the sweat drip down my balls, make all these crawl, and then start talking about skeet, 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 skeet. And people who say I don't attract anything like that, but you was singing it. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? How you doing, Hidden? Right? I'm just saying. So then we sit there. I don't know. I don't attract this. I don't attract that. You got to be careful now, because I can show you some things. Like, and let's be honest. It's not attractive, because now I'm not trying to say condemn yourself. We're not in self condemnation, but we're just talking about being real, right? So don't condemn yourself. You're not evil. I don't have a heaven and hell to put you in. But let's be honest about this, right? Some of y'all would look back at that and be like, that's not that attractive. Or you see somebody doing that today with their songs, and you say that's not that attractive, but you were doing the same thing. You in the 1920s and 30s, way before Chuck Berry would make it popular. Y'all was singing stuff like My Ding-a-ling. The lyrics literally talking about, I want you to play with my pause. Right? But those same people will be like, but your generation. Marvin Gaye, yeah. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I mean, it was great. But let's not forget, let's get it on, right? I'm just saying. I love me some Bob Marley, and he used to play at my house when I was young. Let's not get it twisted, though. Shabba Ranks was out there. Shabba, y'all remember that? That's when it became a little more commercial in the United States of America. And even though he's not really Jamaican, but he does well by the culture, the Jamaican culture, as far as reggae. Shaggy, it wasn't me. I'm just saying, but I'm just saying. Used to love me some Maxi Priest. And I'm not saying you can't listen to anything that isn't saying Yahweh or doesn't say God or Jesus or gospel, whatever you guys listen to. I'm not saying that. I listen to stuff outside of it. What I'm saying is, though, I'm not going to pretend that these youth are doing something completely different than what we were doing. See, you have a fact. Oh, that's wrong, but you have no context. They watched us do it, and they took it to the next level. You know what I'm saying? They watched us do it, and they took it to the next level. And we had the audacity to talk bad about them, but never tell them. See, this is one of the things that's a problem, especially with us and supposed to be leaders over environments or whatever. Here we have a problem. Let's just keep it a buck. You have a problem because you have become a people, right? That didn't become a people, that's a nation. But you have become these persons who are willing to continue to talk bad about the next generation of persons coming up. And you keep saying that you never did anything wrong. I'm not saying the shoe fits, wear it if it doesn't take it off. Obviously, I'm not saying everybody falls into this category, but this is a problem that we have societally, where it's hard for me to be able to listen to a lot of people, because if you ain't never done something wrong, I'm just be honest, it's hard for me to identify with you. You said the dude with the finger waves. I don't remember what you're talking about in that part. He said, for real, my mom couldn't stand my music, and there's very little music I like that my children listen to. Well, I'm just saying in general, right? whether you like the music that your children like, or they like your music, or whatever, right? I'm just saying, in general, it's very hard to be able to teach, for me to listen to a lot of people who are supposed to be teachers, or teachers of anything, or life coaches or whatever. You know why? Because many people act like they never made a mistake. So if you got children who never hear about your mistakes, then they look at you like you're crazy. You got pastors who have never made a mistake. People are gonna start looking at you like you're crazy. And see, that's why I'm willing to go ahead. Let me just share with y'all. There's a lot of stuff out there. I'll tell you that I'm crazy, that I've done weird stuff, that I've done wild stuff, that I used to be a liar, right? That I used to, even if I never fornicated, or committed adultery in the physical, I was into pornography. Like, you don't got to learn about that later on. I'll tell you the truth. Right? I want you to identify, if you want to identify, with me, not as identify under me, but if you're going to identify with me, like, identify with me. That means that I got some great things about me. There's some bad things that come with me. There's still some thoughts that be up in my mind that I'm still trying to eradicate, or trying to get better at, or whatever. I'm much better than what I used to be. However, I'm not perfect. I have not arrived. That's why I identify with Paul. I tell people this all the time. People look at me weird when I say this, but I say, man, I can identify with Paul a lot. And I can identify now with, like, people like Moses, because of what I do now a lot. And I can identify with certain, but it's hard for me sometimes to identify with Yehoshua. I learn from him, right? And I realize he's my family, right? He's my brother, as was said earlier. He's my husband. He's my protection. He's my covering, right? He's the propitiation for my sin. He became my sacrifice, all these things. But I'm gonna be honest with you, like, he was perfect. So sometimes it's difficult to be able to identify with him, because he's perfect. But see, that's why salvation takes place. I got to be salvaged. So there's times when I'm working in perfection, and I'm like, I can go ahead and I can identify with him now, right? But there's other time I can identify him when he's saying, when he cried, when he wept, right? We just did that with the children on Saturday, right? When we're talking about one of the miracles. Or I can identify with when he got really angry about this. I can identify, but but with him never even being angry and never sinning, I can't always identify with that. That's an example. And my goal is to get there to where I can identify fully with it, but I'm not there yet. But you know what? I can identify pretty easily with Paul, because Paul said real stuff like, look, man, the things that I don't want to do are the things that I do. And the things that I do want to do are the things I don't do. I go, Paul, that's bars right there. I felt like that this rising. The things that I don't want to do are the things that I'm out here doing. The things that I do want to do are things that I'm not doing. Right? Like, I can identify with that. Moses strikes the rock. Everybody says, see, that's why he ain't getting to the land of Canaan. I say, but I recognize what it is to be over people, and them to be doing some stuff that's wild and out there and acting like they ain't got no home training, and you supposed to be the home trainer, and they acting the fool and stuff, and you mess around and say, how many times have I done? And you strike the rock. I can identify. I can identify what it is to be a child. Or to, I'm sorry, to have a child, and the child don't listen sometimes, and I mess around and do something and say and take credit for something that Yah has done, and then have to later on pop. Matter of fact, before we got on, uh, the Holy Spirit was revealing to me about some of the stuff. Remember, I told you I've been struggling a little bit financially, and some of it's starting to kind of come back, but I go through ebbs and flows, because I don't work a job, right? This is my work, so I live off of donations only. And Yah showed me why he dried up the donations, and why he dried up some of the stuff. It was because I wasn't acting right in my personal life in a way that and it wasn't even something that was big, but it was something that, if I'm not careful, will affect my whole family. And so he showed me, even before we got right on here today. And I had to stop what I was doing and pray and say, okay, I hear you. I see you, right? I got to get that together. How you doing, Sister Barbara? I hear you. I got to get that together. And I'm sorry, I got this strand of string. Hope it's not, I can't rip it on this. I got to wait till I can cut it or burn it. So sometimes you say you're not going to be angry over something, and then you'll find out and you find yourself getting angry. Yeah, we all have issues, right? So I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And there's things that I don't even like. I tell these people all the time. There's things that the Most High, here's a fact. The Most High tells me to do something, I'm obedient. But here's the context. I don't always like it. And I know that being obedient means that sometimes some people are going to be mad at me. Here's the fact and here's the context, right? Or I think that I'm going to do something, and here's the fact. I'm going to do what it is that needs to be at the house. Context. My wife might not see why I'm doing what I'm doing. My wife, though, because she trusts the Yah in me, she'll still roll with it, but she like, what we doing this for, right? And it might be something that actually goes against something that she asked, but I have to be faithful. And I'll tell her, like, I know that's what you asked, but this is what Yah's saying. Here's the facts. I know how I'm supposed to eat. Here's the context. I start traveling, and now I start making excuses. Well, you know what? I'm not going to spend. I'm not trying to wait 3-4 more hours. If I don't eat now, I'm not going to eat again for like another day and a half because I'm gonna be doing this and this and this and this. So you go ahead and say, well, I got to get something up in me, an excuse, right? And that's being a hypocrite, though. I have to take that into account and say that's hypocritical, bro. That's hypocritical. I'm living underneath the criteria or underneath the critique or underneath what is critical. See, if somebody's getting to a place to where it's critical, we're talking about this is their life, right? If somebody says somebody's in critical condition, what are they saying? They are saying that they are about to die. You're living underneath something. You're living underneath something that causes death. You're living in something that is beneath death. You can't even be critiqued. See, contextual facts. Our 7th F for today, once again, is facts. And we said earlier, right, that basically if I have facts but never have context with it, it becomes propaganda. Yep. This is a life and death situation. How you doing, Brother Jermaine, if I didn't say so already? How you doing, Florence? This is a life or death situation. Can you handle always having facts connected to context? Because if you have facts but have no context, then what happens is you have to change the context. But if I change the context, then I have to change it from fact. See, it is a fact to say that you are not saved by works alone, but it is not contextual to say that faith without works is dead or is alive. It is contextually factual to say that faith without works is dead. See, so somebody will say, stop talking about my works, but that's not contextual. That's you taking one part of one verse, of one chapter, of one book, of one Bible, and you trying to say, I'm going to live off of it. This is why people have become Baptists, because they say that they baptize correctly. How you doing, Brother Henry? Right? Some people say that I am a Baptist because why? We baptize correctly. Some people have become missionary Baptists because our mission when we baptize is better. Some people have become Methodists because their methodology is better. They're looking at certain pieces and saying that this one little piece of what we have, rather than being a puzzle piece to the whole puzzle, they're saying that we are the only people that you should worship under. And I've learned a long time ago that whether it be myself, my family, an organization, Servants of Christ, whatever it is that I'm part of, that we are just a puzzle piece. We are a degree. People talk about it all the time. I've got a degree in this, so I should be able to talk about this, and you cannot. But hold up, you have one degree of knowledge. And you might even be knowledgeable because you might not be intimate with it. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. You might not even be intimate with what you're saying because knowledge means intimacy. To know something means that you are getting together, becoming one, and producing fruit that will provide seed. How you doing, Renaissance? So you can keep telling me about how knowledgeable you are, but I got to see the context. Fact, you got a degree, but there's 360 degrees in a circle. How you doing, Sister Helen? You hear what I'm saying? Fact, you do have a degree, but there are 360 degrees in a circle. You have a degree of knowledge. You have a degree of learning. Okay. But see, you have no, so are you telling me that no other context matters outside of that degree? There's 15 degrees or 15 steps, right? Or 15 odes, right? Or steps in the Song of Degrees or the Ode of Degrees, Psalm 120 through 134. You telling me you got one degree down? How great and pleasant it is that brethren dwell together in unity. That's Psalm 133. That's the 14th degree. What about the 4th degree? No, hold on. The 3rd degree. Israel must be a compact nation. What about the 1st degree? When I thought I couldn't make it, you were there. What about the 4th degree? That there are going to be people who are at ease with you being scorned. What about the 13th degree, where David says, I think this is Psalm 132, the 13th degree where David says that my Oh yeah, that I need to make sure that I find the place that's worthy of Yahshua or Yahweh being worshipped, and I need to bring the people of Yah there, and we must make ourselves worthy of the worship. We can't just be with anybody and everybody doing what everybody does. See, there's more than just one degree, but a lot of people keep talking about you got a degree in medicine. By the way, you know there are doctors that don't get degrees, and that's legal. You know this, right? Because you don't have to go to school to be a doctor. You just have to pass a test. And all doctors, whether they're in school at the time or out of school, as long as you pass the test, you then work under other doctors. See, being a doctor is just an apprenticeship. When you finish your apprenticeship, then you can go ahead and be the doctor that's in charge. But you have to be an apprentice first. Right? I've got to have context with facts and facts with context. People say in order to be a lawyer, right, you got to make sure that you go to school. No, you don't. Matter of fact, a lot of lawyers will tell you that for the first 5 or 6 years of practicing law, they didn't know what they were doing. Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Right? But you have no context. So you think that because that lawyer is up there, that they know what they're doing. You need to learn law because most people don't learn law, including lawyers, including judges. They don't learn all the law. Yeah, you just got to pass the test, pass the bar. The bar in our culture, it means son. Right? We have the bar set for us. His name is Yahshua, right? And he is Yahshua HaMashiach or HaMashiach. I don't need your degree. Now, watch this. I've got degrees. I've gone to schools. I've taken classes at Harvard, right? I've done Harvard Divinity. I've done Howard Divinity. I've done Zion Temple of the Apostolic Faith Ministry Worldwide, Bible College and Seminary. I've taught at other places that are colleges. I've learned under people who are big time in Christianity. I've learned at the feet of many Jewish rabbis. I've learned at the feet. I mean, right? But at the end of the day, what does it matter if I have no context? If I have no life? Paul says that I can speak in all tongues, right? I can speak in all these tongues that y'all talk about. He said, I can perform miracles. I can do this. I can do that. But he said, if I don't have love, he said, what's the point? There, they use the word charity, right? But it's love. It's agape in the Greek. It would be ahaba for us. If I can't pass the love test, who cares? If I have all these facts and all these gifts and all these people follow me and I get all these likes and all these shares and all these people donate and I got all this land and I've got all the riches and I've got all the gold. He said, but you can't love nobody. You know what's interesting? And a lot of people who I have conversation with, and I'm not going to put anybody's name out there because some of you might be some of the people. I'm not talking about anybody particular, but I have all these, some of these big time TikTok names and stuff that you wouldn't think would talk to little old me. And I had these conversations with them, and all this stuff, they can't get love. They can't get relationships right. I mean, they can get the blue check mark, but they can't get relationships right. They can have 1 million and something viewers and have 200, 300 people on their live all the time, reach 1,000, 2,000, some of them reaching, 2 million on a live session, do all that stuff, but they don't have love. People who are like little brothers to me, who are out here traveling, and I see them giving up pieces of themselves so that they can continue to be able to do the social media thing. And they don't even have a relationship with themselves anymore. I weep for them. Some of them don't answer the phone anymore because they know what our conversation is going to be. Because I'm going to start up with, hey, how are you doing? And they're going to say, oh, I'm doing it. And I'm always with all the TikTokers I talk to, then I always have to say, no. How are you doing? And then they start crying. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. Because they gave up so much of themselves to be able to be accepted by everybody on the outside. But they realize now that they've reached where they are, they're not foundational. And they didn't fast from certain things. They've taken on certain things. They haven't separated and stayed separated. And so now they have all these facts, but the facts have no context. Facts got them where they were, but never any context. And even when they use context, it was never proper context. See, because a lot of people can give you improper context, but that, once again, that would be propaganda. That would be a lie. And you have all these people who are talking about facts, but never context. Facts with no context. All men are wicked. Where do you meet all these wicked men? And why are all of us in the same thing? Watch this. The patriarchy that you speak of, it does exist in your dimension, but I don't live in that dimension. And look, I'm a social media, you would call me, I guess, a social media influencer. Maybe not at the level that some of them are, but I guess you would call me a social media influencer. So obviously some of y'all might even think this is the pot calling the kettle black, but I'm admitting to you what's going on. And I have to give you proper context. But you have to realize a lot of people, and look, a lot of us, because it's the society. No individual is greater than the society. No society is greater than the individual. Yeah, how can you tell all men are wicked unless you dealing with wicked men, right? Every man you come across, once again, law of attraction. What are you attracting, right? But see, look, the reason why they put this stuff out there is because they know that society is attracted to what they're putting out. So they're putting out facts without context because they know a lot of people don't want context. This is why a lot of people are just scrolling through 1 minute videos, not just on TikTok, but now YouTube does it. Not just YouTube, but Facebook does it. Not just Facebook, but Instagram does it, even though Facebook, Instagram, same company, right? Not just Instagram, but Twitter does it. A minute, 2.5, 3 minutes. That's all you want. People aren't actually watching whole videos or reading books to figure out what's going on. They want somebody to put up a piece of an article, scroll through pieces of the article, tell them this, that, or whatever, so that somebody can look at somebody's facts and say, yep, those facts are something that I agree with, and not have to ever study any context. But that's what we want preached to. A lot of people don't want to go for long preaching. A lot of people don't want to go for context. A lot of people want to hear you say, he got up. Oh, yes, he did. With all power. I said, all power in his hand. I'm so glad that he came. And that's all people want. You don't want me to. People want 3 points and get out. That's what they teach in school. It's the preachers that say, keep it simple, saints. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, saints. And we become really simple because we have facts but no context. He said people don't look for context, they look for agreement and excitement. Yeah. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Right? People lean their ears to or incline their ears towards what? Towards fables. They have itching ears. Their ears are itching and they hear a fable, not the truth, not context. They hear a fable and they say, let me lean towards that. Watch. I'm not trying to speak ill of any of my brethren, right? Because there's a lot of us that believe in Anunnaki and this and that, and you're trying your best to match it up with Enoch so that you can say Enoch and these fallen angels are here, even though the reality is that the fallen angels are not in heaven, they're not on the ship, they're not anywhere, they're on earth with the devil, right? That your Bible tells you that clearly, and it tells you once and for all in Revelation chapter 12. If you're looking for the devil, if you're looking for his imps, you don't have to look in space. You don't have to look underneath the earth. You just got to look on earth. And by the way, if you're looking for them, here's something that you need to look for. Look for their works and look for what they say. You should know about the tree by the fruit it bears, right? If it's not rooted in righteousness, then it has no place. Yahushua said in Matthew 15, anything that's not planted of my Father must be pulled up by the root. Do you think that a demon doesn't know how to make it look like there's I'm not saying, look, I don't know if there's aliens or not. I'm just trying to tell you, do you think that, see, some of y'all don't think that a demon knows how to put a spaceship or something like that in front of you. Some of y'all don't think that a demon knows how to make a statue cry. See, some of y'all don't think, I'm not saying that it's automatic. I'm just trying to tell you, see, some of y'all don't know that you can say Jesus and still be messing with little boys. You're aware of it, but you're not intimate with that reality. You're not thinking about that. You're in a virtual reality and not in a reality. Like, see, people don't think about the fact that if the devil could have showed up in heaven twice for a service in just the book of Job, then what makes you think he can't show up to your service? Mm. You surprised that Beyonce would make a song like Church Girl or whatever? Beyonce had told you in Black is King, the whole thing is literally demon worship. And I'm not talking about figuratively. I'm talking about look at what she puts on there and listen to the lyrics of the songs. And she tells her son that she puts in the basket like Moses. Moses is supposed to be the savior of his people. That's what her son starts off in the video, right? In this movie that she made. And her son, when she picks him up, she's got him in the Madonna and Christ child pose, right? Which is when it used to be Mariam at Yahashua, and now it's Madonna and Christ child, because it used to be the deity Madonna and her child. Then they just said, we'll just say that that's Jesus, half man, half Zeus. They put that in the video. She's got the same pose over and over again in that video. And when I believe before the first song finally picks up, when she's just speaking, she says to her child in the video, you are more than what they say. You are more than a color. You are more than a people. You will lead your people. Matter of fact, she says you are more than the Bible. But why would that surprise you? Because she's Beyonce and she's over the Bay Hive. And if you know how witchcraft works, a small group of witches is known as a coven, but a big group of witches are known as a hive. And if you know anything about how that works, you know what she's married to. Her husband is Jehovah. He's trying to say that he is Elohim, right? But that shouldn't be surprising to you if you know that Jay, while telling y'all that he wasn't worried about women and this and that, he said he had 99 problems, but a bee ain't one. But then he was married to who would become the biggest bee or bay or Bay Hive. Remember we talked about this? We want to talk about words going forward or backwards. Remember we talked about this a while ago, that if you're going to talk about evil is just live spelled backwards. And a lot of people are living backwards and trying to figure out how it's not evil or why they're in evil all the time. This is why they spell words. These words are spelled. We don't spell words. We have characters. In our language, our words have to be put together through characters. Aleph, Bet, Gamon, Dalet, Che, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yao, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, Tsadek, Kof, Resh, Shin, Atav, right? Like, and each one has a number attached, and each character has a meaning. If you have no character, you cannot even speak our language. If you cannot speak our language, you have no tongue. If you have no tongue, you can't be connected to a body. If you're not connected to a body, you are not a member. See, just because there's a fact out there, you better realize the context that comes with that fact. There's videos out there of Jay-Z doing devil worship, not just his music. I'm talking about there's videos of Jay-Z literally doing demonic dances. He's living backwards. He's living evil. Y'all think because he got money. See, money's not even real. The devil can bless you with money, and you sitting up there saying he must be doing something right. Just because it's right doesn't mean it's righteous. All they have to do is mention black people in a song, and you say, oh, okay, he's with us. All they got to do is come out with the life of OJ, and you go, oh, okay, all right. I'm going to make sure it's gotten to a place to where we are so backwards that somebody has to give no context. They just say the story of OJ, and you go, facts. Never looking for context. Never looking for context. They use as the what do you call it? Forgive me, as a musician, I should get my musician card taken away for this. They use the sample. They use the sample of Nina Simone. My skin is black, right? What happened to Nina Simone at the end of her life? Yeah, they reverse it. Right is wrong and wrong is right. Right. What happened to Nina Simone at the end of her life? You even remember? Anybody even study her? She's a tragedy. Her whole life, she tried to be accepted by Eurocentric society. She went to Juilliard, classically trained. Everybody hated her. She finally said, well, if I'm going to be black, I'm going to be black and beautiful and proud because y'all said that I'm ugly. Then she ended up at the end of her life going crazy because we still wouldn't even really accept her like she was accepted over in Europe. And then in Europe, they finally had no time for her. And she grew up old, bitter, confused, memory loss. Some people might even say crazy. That's the person that they sampled. Yeah, she did Strange Fruit as well. Forgive me, I'm just quoting. I'm not. This for educational purposes. She did a song, Mississippi Goddamn. Nemekitapa. Right? Nemekitapa. I forget how to say it. Juliet tu keep keep. I'm not saying it right. Keep us it on the tune. It's a beautiful song, even though it's actually very sad and tragic. I used to know the song. I never learned French, but I used to actually know the French words, but I didn't know what they meant. But when you look up what it actually means, it's a very tragic song. But you go to France today or go to a French-speaking place or whatever, you say "Nemekita pa," they know what you're talking about. But she was somebody who was always looking for relevance in somebody else's culture. Yes, she was somebody who started speaking for us, but she only did it because she wouldn't be accepted. She didn't do it because that's who she was. So you hear somebody use that and never even think about the fact that the spirit on that song is coming from a place of not accepting who you are. And I'm not saying don't listen to it. Hear what I'm saying? The spirit on that song is not accepting who you are. It's being trying to be accepted, never being accepted, and then realizing that you'll never be accepted by who you really wanted, and therefore now you're actually saddened by who you are. It wasn't a song of victory, so to speak. But all you had to do was see somebody put some stuff and put some blackface on, and you were like, "Oh, he's spitting game. He's giving us real facts." Jay-Z is not. Here's another thing: facts without context. Facts. Jay-Z made it. Facts. Biggie made it. Facts. 50 made it. Facts. Snoop made it. Facts. Dre made it. Even though Dre not really a drug dealer, but he's somebody hitting women, stuff like that. Facts. Ice Cube made it. Facts. I can go through the list. Facts. Scarface made it. Fact. Eazy-E made it. Facts. Whomever made it, right? And I know I'm going through a certain group, certain time period of rap, but I mean, you could say facts, Lil Yachty made it, or facts this one, and facts that one, and facts this one, whatever. Whoever you listen to, facts Wayne made it, facts whomever, right? Facts J. Cole, who's a little different, right? But facts J. Cole made it, right? But many of the people who I just named are all people who killed people in your community. Many of the people who I just named are all people who killed people in your community, whether by gun violence or the violence of putting dope in the community. I'm sorry, who off people, who unalive people in your community. Who took them out. They'll never be able to be what they were supposed to be. A lot of people went to jail because they were faithful to those people. They didn't snitch. And a lot of those people still do stuff. So you can't be surprised. Watch this. I can't be surprised when Jay-Z treats rappers like he treated people on the street, because he came from whoever the greatest of you who can make it out is the winner. I cannot be surprised when Puff Daddy treats people the way that he treats them. The strongest survive. I cannot be surprised when 50 Cent will try to tear somebody's career apart to say that he won a rap battle. The strongest survive. I cannot be surprised when Irv Gotti is mistreating people who are under him and stuff like that. The strongest survive. I can't be surprised when studios are signing people up for 360 deals. The strongest survive. I'm not surprised about rumors that come out about Puff Daddy and what he's doing as far as, hey, how do I get these people to do this? Or when people have these parties, right? You ain't partied with me yet. If you hear that in entertainment game, I know what that means because I was in there. I was a musician. I traveled, right? Somebody say you ain't partied with me yet. That means that you ain't either gone in certain rooms. I'll just leave it at that, because some of y'all wouldn't believe me if I told you anyways. But that means either you haven't gone in certain rooms, or, and by the way, this happens in Christian music too, right? So don't get it twisted. You haven't gone with me in certain rooms, or it means that you ain't gave it up, whether you be male or female. So there's a fact that that person made it, but there's a context. And when you see certain people don't make it, there's a context. There's a reason why. I was talking to a brother I just met recently. Matter of fact, I got to send him some stuff via email. I forgot. But I was talking to a brother Friday, somewhere in there. Thursday. I was talking to a brother on Thursday, and he's a musician. And he was just talking about stuff, and he was surprised because usually when he tells people stuff like this, they usually surprised. I didn't bat an eye. And he was just looking at me, should be waiting for my reaction. I was like, yeah. He was telling me how he could have been very popular in New York. And they told him straight up, your family is going to be unalived. If you sign this contract, we're going to make you, a boss. You're going to be like a little Quincy Jones out here. But they said, your family gone. And I didn't think twice. was like, yeah. Now, I'm not saying I didn't think twice because it wasn't wrong. I didn't think twice because I know that's the game. Yeah, you have to become part of the race. Yeah. I know that's the game. I know this is what they want. You know how many sisters have been messed up? Like, think about it. Think about this, right? Um, I mean, how many names do we have to mention? Who's the brother out there recently? See, this is when context is important. Fact, the brother made it, but context, his life gonna be messed up for a long time. Who's the black brother that was out there? I think he's British, English. Who's the brother, black brother, or he considered himself to be English, right? But who's the brother who came out and said that he literally he had to do a scene and he asked for the devil? He started praying. He started asking the devil to come and take over his body. Yeah, government, the beast is watching all the time. Yeah. Who's the brother? There's a brother out there. Y'all didn't catch it. I know it was somewhat popular. I don't know his name, but there's a brother out there. He was like, yeah, he was talking to these other actors, and he was going like, yeah, and he said, but that's the fact. He made the scene happen, but here's the context, right? The context was that now he had a problem. He said it took him. Sorry, TikTok. Hopefully we don't lose y'all. Y'all still there? Okay, y'all are still there. Can y'all see me all right? Am I breaking up now? Can y'all see me on TikTok all right? YouTube, you guys should be all right, but can you see me on TikTok all right? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, all right, excellent. Um, so he said, but here's the context. So that's the fact. Here's the context. He's trying to get the scene right. He got this feeling inside of him. Now what happens? He said, it took me a whole bunch of prayer and a whole bunch of stuff just to be able to get like okay again, just to be all right. Because that was real. He used for remember I told you you have 84,000 or 86,400 seconds every day, but it only takes 60 seconds. It's Aegis from Snowfall. Okay, I don't even know enough about it. I know Snowfall exists. I've never watched the episode, so I couldn't tell you nothing about it. Right. However, he said all it took was 60 seconds. Oh yeah, I was gonna bring up Denzel Washington when he did the glory scene, and he gave you all the glory tear. Y'all remember that glory tear, the famous tear where he's sitting there and he got his hand up and he getting whipped, but he won't cry, and then the tear comes out his eye, and that was a real tear. He said in order for him to do that scene, he said he went into a room. I think it was a room. It might have just been a room. I think it might have even been a room that was from those time periods that still existed, where you had people that were fighting the war. And he said he said he did it for Malcolm too. It might make sense, right? Because people don't recognize like actors are not being themselves. So they have to, right? They have to actually take on another spirit to give you a movie. That's why a lot of people don't think about this. I pray up before I see movies. I'm prayed up because somebody had to go to a place spiritually in order to give you a physical representation. But Denzel said he was sitting there and he went in his room and he basically, uh, there were all these spirits. And he said he spoke to all the spirits in the room. He said he spoke to all of them and they came in his body. And then he said he spoke to them while they were in his body. He said he got control. You ain't got control when your body's possessed. But in his mind, he controlled the spirit. He said he went out there and did the spirits. He went out there and did the scene. I mean, we would call this witchcraft, but we say great scene. And look, Denzel's a great actor, but in order to act like you're somebody you are not, you have to take on the persona or the spirit of somebody that you are not. That's a fact. So you can be a great actor. Fact. Here's context. You got to give up yourself. You're not in control. It's all part of the game. What about I can't even remember her song now, but she became famous. She had other songs too, but she became real famous for when she passed away, and she had the song about alcohol, right? Oh, they try to make me go to rehab, and I say no, 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 or I won't go, 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 whatever the lyrics were, whoever that girl was, right? Fact, she made it. Context, Amy Winehouse. There we go. Right? Facts. Tupac Shakur made it. Context, he had to give up pop. He had to become pop. He couldn't be Tupac. right? You ever thought about the fact you got somebody like Martin Lawrence? Martin Lawrence had a mental breakdown, had a few of them. Never became this, never been the same since. You ever thought about that? Same Martin Lawrence had a stroke and was strong enough to come back, and a lot of people never even knew. It was the same Martin Lawrence that got into Hollywood and was running around talking about they trying to kill me. Facts, he made it. Context, what was the cost? Facts without context is going to get you dead. Facts without context is propaganda. He probably wasn't lying. It didn't help that he was high. And by the way, when he came back out, he said he was trying to, and then he came out with that was when he came up with that comedy special, Run Tell That. I think it's one of his best comedy specials. I'm not really a big Martin Lawrence comedy fan, believe it or not. I know what he means for comedy, but I'm not really a big fan of his. But Run Tell That is powerful. And it's very funny, but it's powerful. And, but yeah, on that, you could tell that he basically he started telling the truth. And he was like, no, I'm lying, y'all, I was high. He starts off telling you the truth about what happens. Then in the middle of, no, I'm lying, I was high. Facts without context. It's monstrous. It's beast-like. Facts without context gets you in trouble. Pastor John Gray, not to be confused with Dr. John Gray, who actually wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, but Pastor John Gray, right? Cheating on his wife. Gets caught. The woman who he was cheating with came out and told all the business, and she gave receipts. She gave the recordings. She said she showed receipts as far as where he was spending money. She told him told us the dates that he was in certain places or whatever. For months, him and his wife about to get a divorce. And it finally comes out, right? His wife decided she would stay with him, and praise God, they decided to stay together. I believe in reconciliation. That being said, he never took accountability. Tried to tell us that he wouldn't even give us emotionally cheating. I forget how he worded it, but he basically tried to get us to say it was a step down from emotionally cheating. And then goes to TD Jakes, the Potter's house. And I love TD Jakes. Don't get it twisted. I have no heaven or hell to put any of these people in. I'm just talking about we got to give facts with context. He goes to TD Jakes' place. Why? Because TD Jakes is the place that you go to get rescued. If TD Jakes lays hands on you, whether you're right or wrong, everybody just says you're righteous. That's what you do. So he goes to the Potter's house, and he's just standing there, and he's crying, and he's doing all this stuff. And TD Jakes touches his head, and he passes out. And from that point on, nobody said anything about him. No repentance. Tyler Perry doing all this stuff is going back and forth. I'll just leave it at that. Gets a woman pregnant, is not going to be with her though as a husband. Right? Takes care of the child, for what I comprehend. Everybody's starting to see chinks in the armor. He goes and he preaches at the Potter's house, and then he lays hands on TD Jakes, and TD Jakes is slain in the spirit. And while he's talking, I'm just going to be honest. I've told y'all this before, right? I'm not going to pull no punches. I got the big joker. I'm going to lay it down, right? You might think it's too early to cut, but I promise you I ain't got nothing in my hand. None of that in my hand. I got to cut, right? When he was speaking or preaching or whatever you want to call it, he ain't sound masculine at all, did he? Brothers know what I'm talking about. He ain't look masculine. He ain't sound masculine. He sounded like Medea. And there's a lot of people that'll tell you Medea ain't no character that's being played, because you got to take on a spirit to do that. But after that happened, after he got to preach and he got hands and he laid hands on the pastor, on the great bishop. And once again, I believe his word. Bishop Jakes will give you some words sometimes now. Don't get it twisted. I'm not here because the gifts come without repentance. Bishop T.D. Jakes might have some things he might need to repent of, but I promise you, he'll still give you the gift of preaching now. I'm not saying don't listen to him. He got some great stuff. But I'm just saying, that's the place you go to when you mess up. And ever since he laid hands on TD Jakes and he passed out, we ain't had nothing bad to say about him. Now he's in charge of BET, and BET is doing some suspect stuff. And you don't think that he influenced it? You think that just because he didn't have ownership over it yet? This is how stuff works. If I ever get a chance to take over a television, or a television channel, whatever, before I get in, I already start telling them before we sign the contract, if I'm assigned, you're going to start doing this and this and this and this before I take over. If you're going to sell a basketball team, guess what you got to do? The person who's going to own it, they say you're going to have to start doing this and this and this and this before I start taking ownership over it. Because I'm not taking ownership over something that's not going to have my fingerprints on it. You go now, the Potter's House has become a place. Look, excellent word that's still there, but now it's become a place to where if you're in trouble, you go there, and TD Jakes will be the reason why we can say, even if you're evil, it's all right. This is why people have a problem with cirque, or what we call circus, or right, or what we call now church. Even being a Christian. See, let's give facts of context. You say you're a Christian. Why don't you want the whole thing that comes with Christianity? Any Christians on here, please don't be mad. I'm asking questions right now. If you want to be a Christian, do you want everything that comes with being a Christian? Yes or no? Because if your answer is yes, I'm just going to be honest. I got to give you the whole thing. See, you don't even know what the word Christian comes from. Now somebody told you it means to be Christ-like. Tian on the end of the word is not in the same language that they would have said Christos. You said you don't want to be any religion. Well, everybody has a religion. Everybody is part of a legion of people that repeat the same thing. If I drink this water and you drink water today, then that means we share the same religion, right? Like we taking that to another level. But I get what you mean, I guess, as far as, right? But we should stand for something. At some point, everybody should be part of something. Even when people say the kingdom of heaven, that for most people, that's too broad, because a lot of people don't even know how monarchy works. Right? Into his gates with thanksgiving means that you're supposed to actually fast, and you're supposed to let go of some things before you even come into the gates, and into his courts with praise. That means that you have to be worthy of coming into the court. And one of the things that makes you worthy is you know how to praise, and then you can come before the throne boldly. Right? But if you talk about being a Christian, here's some stuff that comes with being a Christian. You ready? The word Christianos, it can mean a couple different things. It used to mean Cretan. You said, how can we set up a chapter? We don't really do chapters, but we have people that are over there in the Carolinas. Matter of fact, the husband and wife team in North Carolina. And one of the issues actually is that we just haven't had anybody in the Carolinas hollering back at them, but they've been trying to set up some stuff where we can at least meet up from time to time. I'm going to try and come through there personally. I don't know, somewhere in the next few weeks, 2 weeks or so at the most, hopefully. And we'll go ahead and all come together and spend a day somewhere. Probably over one of our members' homes. But yeah, if you down for it, just contact us. You can text or email us if you want to go on. Since you're on TikTok, we have a YouTube channel as well. We also have a website. We also have a lot of stuff we do outside of just the live sessions. But you can, if you want to partner with us, participate with us, become a member, whatever, just look on our main TikTok page, click on the link tree. Click on Kofi-Ofori.com. That's the website. Go on there, look for contact information, and then text me at the number that you see up there, or email me at the email, and I'll get back to you ASAP. I actually got to catch up on a bunch of my emails. I'm extremely behind on those. But yeah, but thank you for being interested. We don't really do chapters per se. I guess if we're doing membership at some point, we got to start thinking about chapters. We just started doing membership. That's why I'm doing this membership series. I'm still not used to these terms at our organization yet, but I guess at some point we have to start thinking of, if we're not going to call it that, doing something similar to that. Would you say it gives you a false sense of security, makes you think you don't have to be righteous? Yeah, everybody has a religion. Everybody has a legion of people that everybody does something repetitively that a bunch of people do. That's really all a legion is. Or if you fight for something together, you're a legion. We don't have to be a demonic legion like the one that was the legion that was taken out of the brother and went into the pigs. But everybody has a legion of people that they repetitively do things with, whether you're physically with them or not. Right. But I forget, where were we? Tyler Perry, I think. But yeah, all that stuff, or no, TD Jakes, right? There's a lot of stuff that's happened like that. Matter of fact, once again, no shade. I don't know what happened. Remember, TD Jakes, he went through all this stuff, his daughter's wedding, everybody put it out there, they put it on social media, and then Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he could have been putting his hands on her. He could have just left. He could have been cheating. I don't know. But immediately, everybody forgot about the marriage thing. And now, from what I comprehend, from what people have told me, it seems like she's next in line, right? Which is legacy building, cool, right? But there's some stuff, even if you listen to her teaching, where it sounds really nice, but it's not great. How you doing, King? Thank you. Christian, do you want all of what happens with Christian? See, because Cristianos, there's a couple words in there. Cristianos, some people liken it to the word Cretan. They called them Cretans. Cristianos, for some people, that meant that you were, they felt bad if you were Cristianos because you were and you were Cretan. Why? Because they might even say you were a lunatic. Why? Because you mixed and matched so many different cultures. So a lot of Cristianos, a lot of Christians, right? Where Krishna is coming more so from the Indian version of the word, I guess, but Krishna is going even to like Vishnu, some other things, which really comes from one spirit, if you will, that really is over all these, that all these other spirits supposed to be manifestation. But if you're talking about Christianos, as far as Germanic stuff that was going on, Roman stuff, Greek stuff, pagan stuff, jinns, Gentile, all these different people, eventually stuff that leads to, you know, Odin and Thor, you know, Odin's Day or Whatnot's Day, Thor's Day, Frida, Friday, right? Or Saturnalia, which everybody was doing in some versions, shape, or form. They were people who were considered to be people who mixed and matched the earth with clay, right? Or the clay with the iron. You told about in Daniel chapter 2, when the kingdoms, the Western Empire of Rome splits from the Eastern Empire of Rome, right? The which will be the next century be talked about as the Justinian decree. That's it's context without facts. I'm sorry, or facts without context, whichever way you want to go. You said TDJ says a large amount of DMV pastors and churches in the Potter's house. Yeah, for sure. Matter of fact, another pastor I like to listen to, but it's part of it, Pastor John Jenkins. Matter of fact, a bishop I had named Don Jenkins, interesting enough, he was actually under Pastor John Jenkins, and Pastor John Jenkins is under TD Jakes. One of the first times I actually listened to TD Jakes in person, outside of just knowing people who knew him, one of the first times I actually like got a chance to like be with him and actually like observe him was at John Jenkins Church. What is it called? First Baptist Church of Glenarden, I believe. Right. But I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff where people don't know. So if you're a Christian, the word Christian was something that people used to use as like, yo, be careful about them Christians. They don't actually follow what they even believe. And they try to take some of our belief system and try to say that now we have to bow down to them when we started it. This is why you have to be careful about a lot of stuff. Watch this. Do you know who's most offended when they see people celebrating Christmas? Do you know who's the most offended by that? Let's give some contextual facts. Who is the most offended by people who celebrate Christmas? Besides Yahweh himself and Yahashua, of course, right? But what group of people do you think are the most offended when they see people celebrate Christmas? Well, so you going in the same direction. I see you put Thor out there. You said when you're around these people, you get vexed and stuff. You said the people who it belongs to, witches. There we go. Witches and warlocks and jinns and druids and people who are into Odin and Thor and Frida. They are the most offended. They celebrated it before you started calling it Christmas. It's literally Christos Mass, Christ Mass. Now you say it's a mass, so Christ Mass, we have Mass on that day. No, it's Christos Mass. You add in more to Christ. Yeah, actual pagans. Where do you think the Yule log comes from? That's attached to Odin. Where do you think the mistletoe comes from? You used to have sex under mistletoe. What do you think everybody engorging themselves and eating to their beyond full comes from? You used to have to go and vomit. Yes, I know vomitorium does not always mean a place where people went to vomit, but they did have places where people could vomit out food so they can keep on going. They used to make it goes with the winter solstice, the changing of the seasons. Those who were Norse. It's Norse theology, tied with pagan theology, tied with Druids, tied with Rome. Matter of fact, people who celebrate these things all over the place, they are people who are part of the Roman Catholic faith. Yeah, witches, warlocks, like that's their thing. They like, why y'all biting? Your Bible declares you're supposed to be watching out for it. See, once again, you think of Israel once again as being some little small. See, in your mind, Israel was some small, rinky-dink, nobody cared about. Israel was a kingdom. You don't think people know about kingdoms? You don't think kingdoms learn about other groups of people? This is why your United States of America is really crazy in its educational system, because they don't teach you anything about other groups of people, but they're supposed to be a republic, a kingdom. It doesn't make sense. A fake kingdom, at least. We know they're really a corporation. Right? But Israel, they knew about these people. This is why Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1-5, it tells you, hey, don't be like the pagans. Don't be afraid of the changing of the seasons, winter solstice. Don't be afraid of it and go out into the woods. Don't chop down a tree. Don't drag it into your house. Don't stand it to where it's straight. Don't nail it so it stands straight up. Don't paint it silver and gold. But right, and it says and it's basically saying don't make an idol out of the tree. Why? Because they were worshiping the tree. They were using the tree for worship. Why? Because Odin. I've told y'all this before, right? I don't know if y'all ever did the homework assignment, but if you go and look on YouTube, type in Futurama. It's an old show, like about 20 years old, something like that, maybe even older, right? But go look up Futurama, Futurama. It's actually based off of a play that's a Greek tragedy. I don't know if it's a Greek tragedy. I know it's a Greek play. I don't remember the play off the top of my head, all the parts of it. But Taranga Leela, that's why her name is Leela. Leela is a character, and she's the main person, I believe, in the play. And that's why you have names like Hermes. Hermes, who's Jamaican, but Hermes is a Greek name. Why? Because Hermes is supposed to be basically the same as Nike. Nike in Rome or Hermes in Greek are the same mythological creature, the spirit that people are supposed to worship, the same deity, the same deist, and both of them represent or who are one and the same. This deity, this deist, is supposed to be the one that makes sure that they are a messenger, right? That when you see the wings that were on the shoes, on the feet, right? So Nike, it has a swoosh, but if you notice, it kind of looks like a wing, but also looks like a swoosh. So if you look at it backwards, it looks like, or depending on how you want to say backwards or forwards, one way you look at it, it looks like it's a wing, and then it gets really small behind it. The wing, the angel's going really fast. If you look the other way, it looks like it's going really fast. You can barely see, but then you see the smoke, the cloud of smoke this way, right? It's worship. But if you look up Futurama, do yourself a favor, type in Futurama and then type in Santa Claus and watch the episodes that come up, or watch the scenes that come up. You said, when we buy the Nike, are we partaking in their worship? That's for you. I don't wear Nike anymore. I think I had like one thing of Nike clothing even up until 3 years ago, and I couldn't remember it was because the swoosh had fell off a long time ago. And my son and I were having a conversation about stuff, and I remembered. I was like, oh yeah, I still got this Nike shirt, right? And see, yeah, we got to put it with Compass, or even put it with Odin. See, Santa Claus is a mix of a lot of different stuff. Santa Claus, right, is a mix of a lot of different people, a lot of different spirits. Why does Santa Claus fly? Santa Claus flies because that's when Odin used to fly, and Odin was not a deist or a spirit that you were supposed to be excited about. Odin was evil, right? Odin was willing to do whatever it took to be able to learn everything. That's why he even lost his eye. He was willing to give up his eye so that he could get further knowledge. In order to get further knowledge, all the knowledge to make him who he was, he had to give up his eye to become Odin over everybody, right? And so Odin would come and he would fly over people. So he was evil, and people would run inside. And what you would do, and they would do it in other places besides just people who were Norse, but you would run inside and you would make sure that Odin can get to you. And you would put but you needed life because it was the winter solstice. The sun was going down, which meant that like the nice spirits were not going to be around as much, and only the evil spirits, including Odin and others, in other places they call them other names, right? But that spirit was coming out. And so guess what you did? You ran inside, but you needed life. So what did you do? You brought a tree in with you, an evergreen tree. Evergreen trees are supposed to stay green. So you brought an evergreen tree inside you, the pine tree. right? A lot of people like the pine trees, right? You brought the pine tree. Even the ones that you get at the store that are fake trees, they're usually pine trees, right? How you doing off grid? And you dragged it into your house and you nailed it so it stood straight up. And you would even put maybe different things on it. Sometimes it had pine cones already on it, right? So that's where you get your ornaments. But you might put apples, or you might put other things that you've made up, right? That you like as far as a family, but you brought it inside the house. And then what did you do? You painted it to where it was silver and gold. If you know about gold, gold is Babylon. If you know about silver, silver is Medo-Persians. That's why the Greeks eventually, right, when they would take on a tradition of, or they would start this thing, and now a tradition you call the Olympics, they would have gold for Babylon. They thought they were being humble. They said gold for Babylon, silver for the Medes and the Persians, and bronze for us, the Bronze Age. As a matter of fact, when you look at Daniel chapter 2, what do you see? Babylon gold, Medes and the Persians silver, and bronze is the Greek, iron of the Romans. Then it's a mix of iron and clay. They're mixing this stuff together. And the Romans just took on what the Greeks did. The Greeks basically took on what the Medes and Persians did, and some stuff that, of course, Etruscans and Africans and other people were doing as well. And then you have Babylonians who basically doing what the Mesopotamians are doing. Before that, you have Assyrians. Before that, you have Kemetic people. Before that, you have Kush. Before that, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing. And that's why your beast has 7 heads on it. One head was chopped off and came back to life. That's that Roman Catholicism that came out of Rome. And then out of that, it says that the next beast, the second beast, it has the authority of the one who lost its head, or it was the head that was slain, but somehow came back to life. Just like in 1798, right? A time times and half a time, that's 1,260 years after the Justinian decree in 538 AC. You have now in 1798 AC, you have, or AY, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you have now, you have the Pope who's killed by Napoleon, or he's off by one of Napoleon's generals. And then somehow, some way though, the Pope still has power. So now the second beast that says that it gets its authority from the one that was slain, but somehow came back to life, and is doing the same thing these other heads did, these other nations did, that are part of the same beast, who came out of the people, the water that was spit out by the serpent. It was who? The devil in Revelation chapter 12, who we're supposed to separate from in Revelation 12, the woman with 12 crowns who gave birth to Messiah. And now that Messiah's come back, the devil and his demons, they lost the fight trying to get to the Messiah. And now they're here on the earth. You're supposed to separate yourself to another part of earth so that nobody can get to you. And you got to realize now, since he can't get to us, he has to try and go for the remnant. It is our responsibility to make sure we're separate, but at the same time, we're a bridge so that the remnant that's still out there that the devil is going after, he can't get to. Uh-oh. Right? Now you might have read Revelation 13 and read it as a fact, but maybe you never had the context. All this tying together with Christmas. How in the world does Christmas tie to that? It sure does. You see that? Thank you. Minister Samaya LeRae just found one of them. Xmas Story, Futurama, Season 2, Episode 8. Thank you, sis. Thank you, big sis. Xmas Story, Futurama, Season 2, Episode 8. I'm going to say it one more time if you want to do it. It's a homework assignment if you want. I've mentioned this before, so some of y'all probably look for it. But look up Xmas Story, Futurama, Season 2, Episode 8. The way that Santa Claus operates is the way that Odin operates. See, you think that that's just, and that, so if you're watching that with no context, you just think that, oh, fact, Santa Claus is there, Futurama wrote a show. That's funny. You don't even know that the show Futurama is based off of a play about Taranga Leela. That's why the main character's name is named Leela, right? She has an eye, right? Who has one eye in Greek mythology? Who has one eye in Greek mythology? Right? Like they're telling you things without you but we don't think about culture. So we're not thinking about culture. We're not thinking about the fact or the context that goes with the fact. The culture gives you the context. Exactly. So you got a Cyclops. So now you got to read the story and think about how are they relating the Cyclops to Leela. There's other Cyclops that show up in there, by the way, too. And by the way, there's Amazons. Who were Amazons as far as what the Greeks thought? Who were Amazons as far as what's mentioned in World War II? See, there's a whole story that's going on, but nobody cares about the context. You just watch it. You go, oh, facts. It's just a show. It's nice. There's nobody who's putting out shows just because. Some of y'all pine for the days of Ren and Stimpy. Have you ever thought about how evil Ren and Stimpy is, especially to give it to a child? And have you ever thought about that Ren and Stimpy? Wasn't Ren and Stimpy Nickelodeon? Was it Nickelodeon or MTV? I think it was Nickelodeon, right? If it's Nickelodeon, have you ever looked up the word Nickelodeon and the fact that the word Nickelodeon literally means that you were supposed to not believe or not worship? They're basically saying that Elohim or that any spirit or any deity or whatever is not real, right? And that was in child stuff. There's a cartoon I was watching, or a cartoon. There's a I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, y'all. But there's this thing that pops up. Maybe I can look through my history one day and share it with you guys. We can listen to it. Where this person was literally making the point that there's no such thing as, like, there's no cartoons for children. They were like, cartoons are not made for children. And I was like, at first, and you rack your brain, because I agree with them about some off top. But I started thinking, I was like, if I'm being honest, I can't really say that one cartoon I've ever watched is for children. Matter of fact, I don't really let my children, at least not the first time, but a lot of times, no matter what they watch, I don't really just let my children watch cartoons. Because what used to happen is this: they had the same problem that happened on YouTube. Remember, on YouTube, they still have a problem with it, but it was a huge problem where people were putting out all this stuff on about cartoons, and then or cartoons were coming out, people were watching them, and then people started dressing people up as cartoons or drawing out cartoons, but they were really nasty and perverted, and they were doing a lot of stuff that was basically borderline pornography, if not automatic just pornography, but children were watching it. And so they had to actually, because I remember I used to be able to put stuff up, and then all of a sudden they started asking me on every video, is this made for children? Is this? And I had to go back before they canceled the last YouTube channel. I had to go back through all these videos for like 5-6 years at that time. It was 7 years before they took it down. But like 5-6 years of videos, if I wanted them to stay up, I had to go through every single video and say, no, this is not made for children. No, this is not made for children. No, this is not made for children. No, or yes, this is. And that's why if your children, when they watch YouTube or whatever, if you watch a YouTube video, have you ever noticed that on some YouTube videos, you can go ahead and do something else on your phone and not have it up, or you can turn your phone, the screen off, but you can still listen to the video and walk away from it. But then there's some YouTube videos, if you try to walk away from it or go to another screen, it stops. The reason is because those are ones that are marked for children. Right. So children shouldn't just, right, which is weird in a couple of ways, because why should a child not be able to walk away? But what they're basically doing is that it helps to be able to figure out, like, oh, okay, my child is watching something, stop for whatever reason. Maybe the parent can go see it or whatever. Right. But they did that because of those things. But that being said, if you look at cartoons, facts, there's a cartoon, but I don't go deep into some of these, because some of these are past my cartoon viewing days as far as watching nothing but cartoons all the time. But you can't tell me, if you've got a child, and my children never watch this, but you can't tell me if your child has watched The Amazing World of Gumball, is it? That ain't for children. There's all types of stuff up in there. It's not for children. Showing booty, and I'm talking about they drawing it to where it looks like real people's butts and stuff. Like that's not for children. Even some of the stuff that we swear that we love so much. Go back and watch some of these Batman episodes and how Joker was actually offing people for real, and stuff like that. Yeah, they do these things for adults. You know, the Joker that y'all like, it's kind of sort of based off of Jack Nicklaus, but for real, the Joker that y'all like so much, that Heath Ledger, another person that once again paid the penalty. Facts. Some of y'all think he's the greatest villain of all time in movies and stuff. But what did he have to give up? He had to give up his life. Wasn't Heath Ledger also somebody that before that he had to give up his sexuality? Right. Adult themes, characterized and animated. Yeah. He-Man. I used to watch He-Man all the time. Had a She-Ra. It was a VHS for my sister, for those of y'all who back in the day know about them VHSs. But had a VHS for my sister. And that was supposed to be her thing. I used to watch She-Ra, He-Man, all that stuff. And He-Man is somebody that straight up is G-A-Y. And he would always say, for the power, or by the power of Grayskull. That was how he got his power. She said, for the honor of Grayskull. What about a Grayskull with teeth and all that should I be looking for somebody to get power from? Why is that a positive thing? And I never really watched. I've seen scenes from, but I've never really watched the actual He-Man movie. But that thing looks, I mean, besides the fact that it looks bad, but I mean, that's straight up evil. Has the guy in it that played the antagonist in Rocky 4, played the Russian antagonist. He's supposed to be He-Man. I mean, and yeah, it might be a terribly awful movie by acting standards or whatever, but the stuff they're putting in there, that stuff is in your children's head. I remember reading comics and then watching the cartoons. The cartoons weren't as bad as the comics, but X-Men comics, like X-Men comics for real, um, that led me to stuff about pornography and stuff. I actually started liking the female form. I wouldn't watch pornography all the time just to forget my language, but just to, relieve myself or whatever. I would read, I would look at pornography or even get books that were supposed to be like even women bodybuilders or whatever, because I was just entranced. I was captivated by the woman form. And that started with me reading comic books. And that's why a lot of pornography that's out there, a lot of adult comics are just nothing more than what you grew up with. So a lot of the cartoons and stuff that you watch is stuff that based on. So if you liked, if you grew up watching Marge Simpson, they now make Marge Simpson somebody that's taken in whatever orifice you want. Because in the cartoon, they can do all types of weird stuff. Yep, video games, all that stuff. I mean, for real, that's what we grew up on stuff. They were grooming us for pornography. They were grooming us for homosexuality. Nobody ever talks about that, but how many people are groomers that are over children? Everybody always talk about the Roman Catholic Church, and yes, that's true. Everybody talk about these pastors out here. Yes, that's true. What about all these people that are over your Nickelodeon shows and your Disney shows? Like it's not even like a rumor. We know that a lot of these people over there, WWF, WWE, WWF, WCW, right? NWA. No, that's and was it? Well, actually, there was a wrestling place called NWA. What's the other one that was there? N something, right? But all these people think about in wrestling. I've said this before, but this is the truth. You had people that came out, were wet or sweaty, were always brown, tanned up, right? Because they used to say that white don't sell, right? That's what the wrestlers used to say, not me. So they used to do. They used to oil themselves up. If you were a bad person, you were supposed to sometimes even act like a girl. That's why Ric Flair always had the robes and stuff on, right? And he took that character. That's not his character. He bit that off of Buddy Rogers, right? But he became the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Before that, it was the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers or something like that. Um, that's why they even use Gold Dust. Gold Dust, why did you boo him in the 90s? You booed him. Now he's supposed to be somebody that's everybody's hero. But remember, everybody didn't like Gold Dust. Why? Because they called it androgynous. Which is basically them saying that he ain't really rock with men like that. That was their way of saying. I know that's not what the word means, but that's what they were using. That was saying that to be slick, and you were supposed to boo him. Razor Ramon, who's supposed to be a gangster. Razor Ramon, who was a white guy who was playing the character of another white guy who was playing a character of a Cubano person, right? Isn't that Al Pacino? Al Pacino looked ridiculous. I've never even really watched it. I never could comprehend how so many of us thought that Scarface was a great movie. Like, how you gonna tell? Like, that dude is not cute. Everybody in the movie just about is. And I'm not even saying this to be mean. I'm just saying this is how wild it is that we don't even get culture. Everybody in the movie is a Jewish person playing a Cuban person. Dusty Rhodes. Well, Dusty Rhodes, they messed him up. Well, Dusty Rhodes was out there naked too, but then they put him in the polka dots thing. But that was them trying to play a rib, or in wrestling they call rib a joke or something on somebody, where they didn't like Dusty Rhodes for the longest time, right? And then all of a sudden but he made it work or whatever. People liked him a lot. But remember, he used to come out, he used to do the dancing and stuff, and he even had. Then they put the black woman with him too, and she would dance out there. Y'all remember that? This is wrestling fans back in the day. Y'all might remember this. But in the 80s, when he wasn't the man like he was, and but yeah. And by the way, Rhodes' real name is Virgil. This is how much they didn't like Dusty Rhodes. Y'all remember the $1 Million Man? He had that guy named Virgil, right? You remember he had that guy Virgil with him, who was basically a slave to the $1 Million Man, right? They called him Virgil because that's Dusty's real name. So they wanted him to know that that's how bad they felt about him, was that they would make him a black slave to the rich $1 million man. And the $1 million man was basically supposed to be somebody who was made up by Vince McMahon, who made up a lot of the characters, but he made up that character based off of himself. So when you see the $1 million man and his character, that's how Vince McMahon saw himself. Obviously, they say you're supposed to turn yourself up to 11. So basically, like, you're supposed to be yourself in wrestling, but then you're supposed to like enhance it to where it's just a ridiculous level. So I'm not saying Vince McMahon exactly sees himself like that, but that's how they came up with that character. Was Vince McMahon said, I see myself like this. He would even give the $1 million man, because he wasn't making millions in real life, so he would even give him like his black card. So the $1 million man was trusted. Ted DiBiase, he would go out places and he'd be trusted. But if somebody recognized him, then he was supposed to be like, if you, so let's say he was just going to a McDonald's or something and they're eating, and some child or some adult is like, Ted DiBiase? He's supposed to start laughing, because that was when nobody was supposed to know you were actually you didn't live that life for real. So you're supposed to start laughing like Vince McMahon. That's where that ha 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 ha, I think that's how Vince McMahon actually laughs in real life. All that's supposed to be real. So like he would take the card out and he might start buying certain things, or he might say, here, let me order something for everybody in here. And then he might take the bag, because it's supposed to be a villain, and throw it in the trash or something like that, or whatever. Or y'all remember there was this one thing that he did in front of all the children, and he got a black child to come out, and he said basically, if the child, he pulled out, I forget how much money, it might have been 20, 50, $100 bill, whatever. He said, can you bounce this basketball 10 times? If you can bounce it 10 times, I'll give you the money. So the child, being a little child, he was struggling, but he's getting 1, 2, and they're counting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then he kicks the basketball into the crowd. Now, I'm laughing. It's terrible, because that's what he did, a little black boy and everything on TV and everything. But that's what he's supposed to be. That's what he's supposed to be, this character. People look at him like this and they say he was a great, they call him a heel, a bad guy. He was a great heel, but he kicked that thing into the crowd. And the little boy basically cried. Now, I think they made it right with the family afterwards. The $1 million man didn't, because he's supposed to be a bad guy. But that's what people remember. So you go back to your nostalgia, that nostalgic trauma, and you say, oh, man, I love $1 million man. Why? There's a fact. You love him. But what's the context? Why do you love him? Why do you think that that's acceptable? He wasn't even based off of you. He was based off of Vince McMahon. What is Vince McMahon doing for your community? Vince McMahon finally got outed at the fact that him and his wife haven't been together for decades now. They have a relationship to where she gets what she wants and he gets what he wants. He gets to do with whoever, whatever he wants to do. And he got outed on it, to where he was sleeping with women, and then, sometimes probably going too far with sleeping with women. I'll just leave it at that. And one of the women was like, hey, he was paying me and I didn't feel comfortable or whatever, and him and his boy have both had relationships separate, not at the same time, but had separate relationships, and they were being messed over, and they didn't keep up the commitment as far as how much they were supposed to pay her. So she outed them, and then come to find out, so we're attracted to things and people. System not for us yet. How you doing, Forever Young? That was a reason why that's the reason why we still think about this stuff, right? We think of Scarface. Scarface was a person who wasn't even Cuban, playing a Cuban character, and we love the fact that we love the fact that he was terrible, and that terribly awful towards people, and that he was despicable, and that he ended up going out. And by the way, if in real life, whether you're high or not, if you shoot somebody in certain ways like he was shot, he's not just going to be, you're not going to live. But we like to see him. And the only reason that you could say he might have even been able to do that in real life is because he was supposed to be coked up. You said the magic school bus made you really rebellious, get messy, and make mistakes, just not caring. Yeah, the magic school bus, by the way, why they had to, it was magic. They did some teaching and stuff, but it's mad. I tried to sell some of it to my son, and my wife was just straight up like, no. And I already knew, and I was like, yeah, I'll explain it to him, because I have to, unfortunately, with everything he watches, I have to watch with him and explain and talk about this and blah, blah. And she was like, no, we ain't doing that at all, because it's magic, right? It's witchcraft. I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I couldn't even explain. I tried to make it work, but it shouldn't even been done, right? So once again, I make mistakes as well. But I'm just saying, right? Like, we have all this stuff out there. Right, Cabbage Patch Kids. I've talked about that before. First of all, kids are baby goats, and the only reason why you call your children kids is because Greeks used to be attracted to little boys. Men used to be attracted to little boys, and they dress them up in high heel shoes because they were attracted to goats also. And goats, when they have offspring, you call them kids, right? But Cabbage Patch part is something that comes from people that would just work for you. Go look up. Go look up. I've told y'all this before. Go look up Cabbage Patch postcards. When you get the chance, go look up Cabbage Patch postcards. Go look up on YouTube something called Cabbage Patch postcards, Cabbage Patch art. You'll discover, and it's not just in only Eurocentric places. You'll actually find that it spreads over a lot of Asian places and stuff as well, right? There's this whole thing of these children that are being raised to just be used for work, for industrial labor. And they're always coming out of cabbage patches. So they would that was the mindset, was that these are just things that we're growing to work for us, right? But you can go look it up, right? And you'll see all these weird postcards and all this weird stuff, and see it's a fact. It's cabbage patch, but you don't even think of to yourself, why do they come with birth certificates? Well, artificial people come with artificial names. Your birth certificate. So they putting it out there, but you just think it's a fact. It's just a doll, but you have no context for it. There's a spirit that comes with that, and there are prayers that were said over them. That was not just random. And you'll find it. You'll find it in Asian art. You'll find it in Japan. You'll find it in China. These children coming out of cabbage patches, like literally growing out, or even sometimes they'll have like the children or the cabbages even like in water, and you'll see somebody like with a net, like scooping them up. This is child labor. And remember, child labor is something, it still happens, but it's something that used to happen like legally to 1930s, 40s. Children who were losing their arms and legs because they were working in factories, and they stopped going to school a long time ago. How you doing, Short Circuit? You said they're ugly. I can see that. Said I saw naked children when I looked up Cabbage Patch postcards. Yeah. And the children are oftentimes naked too. Which, by the way, people used to think that's cute. Somebody had a doll and the doll would be without clothes and the child would just be carrying a naked doll around. Like that's weird. Have you ever thought about even like how weird it is? Have you ever thought about how odd it is that when you go clothes shopping, you look at mannequins that have no heads and have no arms? I know somebody's gonna say, well, that's a mannequin. No, that's odd. That's an odd image, isn't it? You ever thought about that? My wife and I have conversations about that a lot. Like, this thing is decapitated. Why? Why does it have no head? It's freaky. It's weird, right? But that's a culture that it comes out of. You said especially the black ones. Hey, any of them, for real, for real. But I see what you're saying. But we just think of that as a normalcy. That's just what it is. That's just how we were raised. We have facts, and nobody thinks about context. Right? We're never going to have, I mean, I don't know if we're going to do mannequins. Mannequins are weird context to me anyways, but if we do, if for any place that we might have, it's never going to be without a head or without, for sure. We want right? If it happens to not have this, that, or whatever, that's fine. And there are people that don't have all their limbs, but I'm saying straight up just having something in there and has no head, that's weird. Right? The context of a shot, the fact somebody can give you a shot, somebody can give you a jab, not just the jab that we know about from 2020, but a jab. Right? Has anybody ever thought about the context of why people get shots? Where did it even came from? That's somewhat new in the story of mankind. In his story, you will think that that's always been there. But the fact of the matter is, yes, you can get a jab. The context is that the only reason you get a jab is because they believe in their culture. The people who usually give you the jab believe in their culture, that in order to, if something attacks your body, you're supposed to attack it. How you doing, Meek Tills? That's what they believe. If you look up elves, for example, you think of elves only as these small little people that are around for Christmas time. To them, they used to believe that elves were these small things that could actually get in your body and be in your veins. And so if you were itching, they were these evil elves inside of you. That's how they started off. And then they started making their way into other things in folklore. And so anytime that your body is sick, they don't believe that your body could be sick because of what you eat, or you could make sure that your body is fearfully and wonderfully made, can heal itself. They believe that if your body is sick, it's attacking you, and therefore you should attack it. Hence, they attack your vein, right? And what do? They attack your vein and they give you a virus so that this elf inside you is fighting, or this elf they're putting inside you can fight the other elf. And hopefully the one that they're putting in you wins. This is culture. It's just for educational purposes only. And somebody gonna say he's off his rocker. Do some research, right? I'm connecting dots for you, and I don't have time to really go through all the stuff. But I promise you, like that's what it is, right? It never used to be up until somebody gave you a shot in Europe. No, people weren't giving out shots. It didn't make sense, right? If I'm sick, why would I stab myself? You ever thought about that? You said never liked elves, saw pigs with sharp teeth and sneaky creepers. Yeah. You said that's why you have an immune system for a reason, to protect you naturally, right? Like if I were to come to you and I would say, hey, you know what, you're sick. I'm gonna cut you. Now I get some people, well, maybe you're poisoned, this and that, or whatever. All right, fine. And we want to say there's a possibility of that for sure, right? And maybe you need that. But see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. I can't stab you every day to bleed out certain things, right? I'm not supposed to. Right? Like when I used to get shots when I was younger, much younger than I am now, right? When I used to get shots still, I always used to tell them straight up, do not let me see you giving me the shot. Why? Because if so, I'm going to fight you. My natural response is to fight you, and you will probably not win. And I might hurt myself in the process because I got this needle in me, but I will fight you because it's not natural to see yourself get stabbed. And I was trying to do all this stuff. Let me give blood to the Red Cross, and let me do this, and let me. Yeah, and they're holding on to that stuff. A lot of times they're testing it, not even using it on who you think they're using it for. Right, but it doesn't make sense. But in their mind, where they come from, if something attacks you, you attack it. Matter of fact, I've talked about this one before. Y'all know where the saw comes from, right? Y'all know where the chainsaw. You know why they created the chainsaw. You think it's because they cut down trees to do something with your house. You know where the chainsaw came from, right? The chainsaw didn't come because they were trying to cut down trees. The chainsaw, they used it. It was a hand chainsaw, and it was created to be able to help them if they needed to basically break a woman's pelvis apart, to cut it up. Yeah. Now it wasn't like that one, but they had a hand chainsaw, so it was probably even worse, right? Because it was slower. They had a hand crank, and they would put it on you. And if they had the baby was stuck or something like that, rather than do some stuff that would be natural, go look it up. Look up, see if I'm lying. If the baby was coming out, they couldn't get the baby out, and they needed to break the woman's, which sometimes you have to, right? Because some of us, when we born, we got huge heads. I got a big dome myself. They didn't have to break my mama's bone, but sometimes they've had to actually, do something to separate the pelvis some. A woman's pelvis normally, is designed to where it can separate some, but there can be different complications, whatever. And especially when they're giving you all this anesthesia nowadays, right? Because you're not supposed to be high, and your baby's not supposed to be high during birth process, but that's what they do. So when you're high, sometimes you can't feel the way you need to feel, so your body doesn't operate right, and the baby doesn't move right. However, they literally would hand crank. They cut the woman. They get the baby out of there, and then the woman has to heal, right? And hopefully have her pelvis come back together. And back then they weren't that great at putting bones back together. So she might not ever be the same again, even if she is able to walk again. How you doing, Albert? Thanks for being being on today. Right? That's where that came from. That's legit where that came from. That's the reality. Right. But now that's something that you would think would be barbaric, but they do a lot of stuff like that that's still barbaric. You don't think that it's weird that they would say, well, if something's attacking your ovaries, we'll just take out your ovaries. We'll just attack them. Isn't that weird? But some people think that's okay. Isn't it weird that somebody attacks the way that you look and they say, okay, well, we'll go ahead and we'll take we'll remove your chest or we'll make it bigger. It will put something in you that if it bursts open, it'll kill you. It'll harm you. I mean, that's weird, isn't it? And nowadays they don't even put real thing. Remember, they synthesize everything. Like they learned that bee stings help women with breast cancer. So guess what they did? They synthesized the bee's venom. You could just give the woman, if that's really what it does, you could just give them the woman and make sure you concentrate or use the venom that's there and put it exactly where you need it to be. But now they synthesize it. So the synthesized venom or medicine, you call it, it does more harm because it comes with side effects. Like it's a very odd situation, but we live in facts without context. We don't even think about this stuff, right? If you get cancer, right, because you've been spraying your garden for dandelions, rather than dandelions should be ate by you. You said you just looked it up? Yeah, see, I ain't lying. Right? But if you were to think about it, right? They tell you get rid of your dandelions, even though you should eat them because they're best for your body, for your blood, for digestion, all that. It's an officinalis. It'll help your whole body. But then they'll say you spray it, you'll get cancer from the spray. But then they'll give you fake synthesized dandelion that has side effects. So you'll be able to stay alive just long enough to slowly be off by cancer. Meanwhile, you could have just ate the dandelion and not have to even worry about a synthesized dandelion, a modified dandelion that's patented. They only modify it so they can own it. And we don't even think about it. We just go, oh, medication, or why are the companies doing this? Or why are the companies making it so it's so? The only reason why companies synthesizes anything is because if you patent something, you can own it. Right? Or I'm sorry, if you patent something, you can take ownership. By law, by law, it's legal. By law, if the Most High created it, you can't patent it. So when you go get a medicine and it's by such and such a company and they say this is ours, the reason it's theirs is because they modified it. It comes with side effects. If it doesn't come with side effects, then it can't be owned by a company. Right? Aspirin is an actual tree bark. You can go get aspirin and make yourself aspirin easy and grind it up, or just bite on it or suck on it or whatever. But you could literally get some tree bark and grind it up, put it on your grater or something like that, and then grind it and make it into powder. And you could take aspirin whenever you need to. And it would be natural, right? But now if you take aspirin, right, especially you take the aspirin that they give you, you can mess around trying to take some aspirin and end up, something happened to you in your sleep. Yeah, we just don't question. You said the new chicken they just passed, sure. Or even like the fact that they've been saying that KFC came out, right? We were talking about that when we were talking about food. KFC came out and told y'all straight up, oh yeah, we've been printing chicken nuggets for a minute. They just told you, like everybody's more worried talking about, is that rat, is that cat, is that dog, is that horse, is that actual beef, is that actual pork? They got enough pork for everybody. They put pork in everything. It's crazy, right? But we don't even talk about the fact that in all that's going on, they've been printing up nuggets. If they've been printing up chicken nuggets, that means that there's no nutrients. Not just the pink slime. I'm talking about they've been literally going to like a 3D printer, so to speak, and printing out food. But we're so used to going and getting fake food that we don't question it. There's no context. We don't think to ourselves, right? If somebody has the Impossible Burger, the Impossible Whopper, something like that, right? If somebody has an Impossible Burger or an Impossible Whopper, if somebody has an Impossible Burger or an Impossible Whopper, right? Oh, be all right. So if somebody has an Impossible Burger or an Impossible Whopper, right? It's impossible. They telling you the truth. See, people keep thinking it's conspiracy theory, but we got to stop talking about theories. It's not theoretical. This conspiracy. It's impossible. First of all, if you go somewhere, let's say you're vegan and you want to get an Impossible Burger from, what is that? Impossible Whopper. That'd be Burger King, right? Let's say you want to go to Burger King, get an Impossible Whopper. Question: do you think that they make the Impossible Whopper without it ever touching meat? They're going to make it on the same grill. And even if you clean the grill's still going to have traces of meat. Number one. But number two, it's still fast food. It's still fake places. It's still places where they print up food. You're not having a true vegan experience. Matter of fact, this is something I try to tell vegans all the time. And look, I used to almost be vegan. I would only eat meat every other Sunday. Right now, I'm trying to do nothing but fruit. I'm trying to have go to Smoothie Kings and just get nothing but the huge 40-ounce once a day. That's going to be my and try to make sure I get it with no dairy. That's going to be, if I can afford it, that's about $10-11 a day. So hopefully that'll be my meal for the next little bit, right? But a lot of people don't even realize, like, I still go only to certain places because I know where they get their fruit from. And I don't get some of the stuff that everybody else gets. I know where they get, like, certain people, they get their fruit from certain places. So you can actually do some research. You can even talk to owners. Sometimes they'll let you talk to them. You can call, be like, can I talk to the owner? I just want to be able to find out this and that. And you can actually have conversation, believe it or not. Now, you can't blow them up like that, but sometimes managers, district managers, whatever, they'll tell you, oh yeah, this place, they get their stuff from this farm and blah, blah, whatever. You can check out stuff for yourself. We don't even think about that. Like, to the extent that we'll check out things for our children, but we don't even think about, should we check out what that school is feeding our child, where it comes from, what farm they get it from, this and that or whatever. Or if you're homeschooling especially, you should make sure you're looking at that for your own children. That's why we say we should grow our own food, right? Save your seed, start rooting your own stuff in cups and eating the greens that are coming out. You said where you go? So I know where to go. I'd be skeptical. I'm just saying, so I wherever I go, I try to research like that. Sometimes you kind of take a stab in the dark. But one of the reasons I'm saying that is because a lot of people do not rotate their crops as well. Right? So a lot of people don't rotate crops. So when they do not rotate their crops, you're not getting nutrients anyway. So one of the things that I have to do anywhere that I try to grow food, and I grow it in some very eclectic places because I'm always on the road. But one of the places that one of the things that I do is that if I'm going to put soil in there, even if I buy soil from the store, I don't care if I buy soil from Aldi. By the way, y'all know, if you're going to get some soil, you're going to pay a bunch of money for it. Like, fine, you get those $10, $11, $15 bags, $20 bags, depending on the size. But you get some pretty decent sized bags from Aldi. If y'all know about Aldi isn't everywhere, but nowadays it seems like it's just about everywhere. But go to Aldi, get you a little $3, $4 bag that's still heavy and everything. And if you think it doesn't have enough minerals, this is what all you do. The same stuff that they sell you at the store, same calcium pills, salt, magnesium, all the stuff that you see, turmeric, all the stuff, go and put it in your soil. Use your hands. Yes, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. Use your hands and put it in there. And then, right, or if you don't like that, pour a little bit of soil and then put some stuff in there, put some of your spices and stuff in there, and put a little bit more soil and put your spices and stuff and all your calcium tablets and all that stuff in there, and keep it up. And when you start watering it, those pills and everything they're going to start being ate up anyways. But those pills and everything, when the water goes through, it'll rinse it through. Make sure that you get yourself whatever your bucket or your vase or your container is, if your cup, whatever you're using, make sure that you drill it so that some of the water is going to stay on the bottom, so that when it starts to root, you'll always have some roots that can drink of the water as much as they need. But make sure you have holes that aren't necessarily in the bottom, but are kind of at the top. So let's say it's the bottom of it. You make sure you have some stuff just high enough to wherever you want your water to come to, so that your roots can eventually run down and you can always be able to get some moisture in there and everything, and then put holes in other places up higher so that it doesn't, drown and stuff like that. But make sure that you have your pills and stuff in certain places to where, as the water and everything's being poured in from time to time, or if it's going to be outside and rained on or whatever, you can always ensure that you are giving minerals. Because what happens is that people don't rotate crops. When you do not rotate crops, then you do not rotate minerals. If you notice here in nature, there's a whole bunch of stuff that grows together. So you're used to manicured stuff. You think that if somebody treats it, if it's manicured, if it looks like if it looks like a topiary garden, or if it looks like Alice in Wonderland or something like that, you think that means that it's nature. The nature of things is things grow. right? Vines go around things sometimes. Trees touch each other sometimes, right? I used to be, when I was a child, I used to hate when my food would touch each other. I used to hate when my green bean juice would be up in my brown bean juice, right? Or my black eyed pea juice would be touching my broccoli or something like that. No, like these things are supposed to touch in nature. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. Right? So they're supposed to touch. And as they touch each other, right, they actually get nutrients from each other. As they get nutrients from each other, then they begin to be able to feed each other. As they feed each other, then when you eat one thing, you get something that comes with a bunch of other things because it has all the stuff that it's soaking up. You said you separated the cucumber plants, they unalive. Oh, sorry to hear that. Yeah. Or even stuff like, for those of us that are native, one of the things that we used to do is what? We used to do the three sisters. You grow beans, squash, and corn together. The corn, right, goes up. The corn goes up, right? The beans and the squash wrap around and also keep it in there. And the beans, like the beans basically feed the corn feeds the squash feeds the beans. You could do that in a really small place, right? Have some corn that just grows straight up, and then you have stuff that wraps around it, and you have some stuff that's growing around the borders of it, and all of them feed each other, right? So the fact is, you could be eating vegetables, but the vegetables could come without context, can't they? They have no nutrients. And this is what happens. We need context. How you doing, Longfellow? We need context. Yeah, that roundup. I'm sorry, I missed you getting cupcakes. That roundup. We need context. We need what? We need context. We don't have context. We eat stuff, we get stuff, we're fed stuff, we're taught stuff, and we don't get the nutrients. See, when you know what barashat is, you'll never eat the Bible the same again, correct? You can't if you know how to spell out barashat, if you know how to spell out alacham, if you know how to spell out yachava, if you know how to spell out achaba, you can never eat the Bible the same. Nobody can ever come to you talking about there's no such thing as a Trinity. Just because the word Trinity doesn't exist in our language, nor is it even really in most versions of your Bibles, it doesn't mean that we don't know what that context or concept is, because in our culture, we cannot even spell out who Elohim is, or even use his name, Yahweh, or even use the name of his son, Yahashua, or even talk about Lavak HaKodash, if we don't talk about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. When you know the context of something, it's not even, so there's all these people talking about facts and Trinity, but they don't even know. If you knew what the word says, you wouldn't even have to worry about arguing the Trinity, because all you have to do when somebody says, why do you believe what you believe? You just spell out his name. You see what I'm saying? I just spell out his name. And if you don't like what his name is or what we've been using since the times of Adam, then that's on you. That's not my fault, right? See, this is when we said, once again, as part of this definition or not definition, but part of when we talk about facts, we will not teach his story. Matter of fact, let me go back a little bit. It says we should use every opportunity to embolden our people to wear their hair, flaunt their noses, love their melanin, exhort their color, and push our culture. We will not teach his story. Our story will be the standard. The story will be the foundation. Right? Our story will be the standard. The story will be the foundation. Everything that we're doing is foundational. Another F, we talked about it, the 7 F's, right? Our story will be the story will be foundational. Our story gets to be the standard. The foundation is the story. There's truth, period. We understand it, though. There's a standard we're under, right? There are pillars. You see, there's pillars behind me that's holding up the covering, right? The thing that covers us is a standard. I'm under it, so I understand. If it begins to rain or if it's too sunny, I understand things that help to prevent certain things from being under me. But there's also a foundation that this is built upon. And the foundation is the truth. The truth is what I'm on. I have to have a standard that covers me, right? And so the standard gets to be ours. This is my covering. My standard is my covering. To the thin line between fact and fiction. Fiction, yeah. We said earlier in the definition, right? What does it say? And how you doing, Big Roy? It says what? That which we say that which we say and teach must be true. Truths on their own are not enough. Context is key. Truth without context means that it becomes propaganda. It's so wild. Watch this. People will be like, hey, you know what? Adolf Hitler, he believed in the Bible. He was a Christian. Adolf Hitler burnt books. Adolf Hitler said that he was the God. And I'm used that literally because in Germanic language, good is God. So he believed he was good. He was God. His people believed that he was not only the leader of them, but he became their God. People still worship him to this day, not because he was a leader, because he was their God. He was their God. You must comprehend what they're doing with him. They're not just randomly saying stuff. AH was a God to them. In Argentina, he is a God to them. In Chile, he is a God to them. In the United States of America, he is a God to them. In Brazil, he is a God to them. Don't get it twisted. This is worship. KKK, he is a God to them. JFK, believe it or not, look up JFK's journal where he said that Hitler one day will be remembered for the true genius that he was. Because y'all don't know that Jack Kennedy was his father. Jack Kennedy was a Hitler supporter and made sure that it was hard for the United States of America to even get into the war against Germany. Why? Because that is their God. In Madison Square Garden, the KKK used to have rallies over there in America. The people who you said you fought against, the KKK, had rallies in Madison Square Garden right in New York. Y'all say that's supposed to be the best city of all cities. Why? Because he is their God. Had no context. But people will say he believed because he had a cross behind him one time. That was propaganda. He was trying to get Christians to see that everything's okay with what we're doing over here. But Hitler has a quote, and let me make sure it's correct. Let me make sure this is correct. I want to make sure I get it correct because some people will say that he's misquoted because they try to shift one or two words around. Let me make sure I get it exactly correct. Let's see. Hitler quotes. How do I want to put this? Hitler quotes. Generation without conscience, I think is what it says. And this was what was, if you go and visit the gas chambers in Germany, this is what it says. If you go visit the gas chambers in Germany, this is what it says there. I'm not just saying something random. Right? This is his quote. I quote now because somebody will try to say that if you say the wrong word, taking it out of context. Let's not take it out of context. Let's give you exactly what it says. So we can give you the fact, but then we can talk about the context that he's left with people that they still worship because they worship him. How you doing, Bianca? This is what AH said. This is what your boy said. I say that in jest. This is what the AH said, right? Yeah, and the KKK did steal the swastika from Tibetan and African practices, right? Because it used to just be a peace symbol. But this is what Adolf Hitler said, and I quote: "I want to raise a generation of young people devoid of conscience, imperious, relentless, and cruel." What did it say? What did it say? Oh, Kofi, you just be making stuff up. What you say? No, hold on. Let's read it again. Hitler said, "I want to raise a generation," and he had this right in where the gas chamber was. Right? Those people who were doing this to others, he he wanted them to see that every day. He wanted the children to be raised off of that, right? And there's a bunch of children, and now their children's children and their children's children's children who have been raised off of this very thing. See, you're not dealing with somebody's just thought process. You're dealing with a religion. You're dealing with the belief. You're dealing with the faith. This is their God speaking. You're dealing with the Kennedy family. This is their God speaking. So you think it's just as simple as the Axis powers versus the Allied powers. No. This is to them. This is God. This is the same God that the same Elohim that you reverence, and the same God that those who are in Christianity say they reverence. This is the same God today. Matter of fact, he's greater than God, because God didn't get it moving fast enough. This God actually started offing these people, even though this God was actually Jewish himself and did not have blonde hair or blue eyes and was on speed. If you ever look at Hitler, right? If you look at some of Hitler's speeches and stuff, or if you want look at Hitler in 1936 at the Berlin Olympics, and you'll see he's shaking. You know why? Because he's on speed. They used to give him straight dope. He's tweaking. Anyways, I want to raise a generation. This is what he said. I want to raise a generation of young people devoid of what? Of conscience. Now, conscience is more of a Greek term, anyways. But those of you who think conscience and you're thinking conscience is positive, well, then he's saying I want them to be away from what's positive. That means they must be imperious. That means they must be relentless, and that means they must be cruel. If they can meet those three criteria, then we can say we've done our work. But at the same time, while having no conscience, the only person that they should answer to is who? Is Hitler. The only person that they're going to answer to is Hitler. Is great old AH. However, people want you to believe that he was somebody who believed in the Bible. He burned Bibles, but he put a cross behind him one time. By the way, he didn't believe in what you believed in, but he did go looking for the spear of the spirit, what they call the spear of destiny. If you're familiar with the movie Constantine, that's supposed to be the spear, right? And it's in the Bible too, of course, but it's not called the spear of destiny. But Yehoshua was pierced in his side by one of the Roman guards, and out of him came blood and water. He had no blood left. He had shed everything, so all that was left was water. That started coming out, and you even seen it in the Passion of the Christ, right? And water splashes on him, and he says, "Surely, this was the son of Elohim," even though and you start seeing the sky blacken in the movie and all that. But that spear of destiny, he went looking for it, but he went looking for a whole bunch of stuff. He went looking for things from all these different belief systems because he wanted anything that would either give him power, even if he had a spiritual advantage, or even if it just made him look like he had it. So if he had the spear of destiny, and he also had what the Amazons use, and he also had what you look great in India, and he also had what the Chinese. Then he was trying to get everything. If he had what they liked in, if he could have got the golden tool from West Africa, whatever, he was trying to get anything he could to be able to say, "See, we have all the power. Everybody bows down to us." It sounds like, if you know your the story, not his story, but the story, it sounds like people like Alexander the Great that went to all these different countries and started putting himself in a position to where you looked at him as being the deus or the deity over all these other spirits. He was doing the same thing. So when you see a cross behind Hitler, Hitler didn't care about the cross. He burned Bibles. And if you told him that the Bible said what he was doing was wrong, then you were put in a place to where they burned you. Matter of fact, let's be honest, they melted you. Yeah, he used it for fear, for reverence. He used it to make you afraid. You said Elizabeth started the war looking for the golden stool. Yeah. That's why when you go to all these museums, have you ever thought about the fact that you can go to any country, especially in the West, and see African artifacts all over the place? Because they're trying to say we have control over your stuff. And when these West African nations or other African nations all over Africa start saying, "Can we get our stuff back?" And they start saying, "Well, why should we give it back?" And you say, "Well, because you clearly stole it. It doesn't belong to you." Right now, those people will say, "Well, it's a fact. We're upkeeping, we're supporting, and yes, what our ancestors did was wrong. But just because what they did was wrong doesn't mean that we can't make it right." Well, how can you make it right? You still have it. right? Like that's the issue. That's the issue for real, for real. The people are having. Like that's why when you have people have this conversation, why you always bringing up the past? You don't want to be honest about the fact that you benefit. The fact is, you're right. Here's the fact: there's nobody alive here today that started chattel slavery. Vatican does the same thing, of course, right? Masonic Masons do the same thing, of course. Like, have you ever thought about the fact of how evil and wicked it is for somebody to say that I'm supposed to withhold knowledge from you? The only reason why, even in the Bible, somebody should withhold knowledge is just because you can't decipher the code. If you know the code, if you know the culture, nothing's really being withheld. The only thing that stops it from being withheld is your intimacy with the culture, your intimacy with the Most High, right? But that's why you have people today that can't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a fact. Nobody in here started chattel slavery. You're absolutely correct. Now that we have passed that, right? Now that we can agree on that, because I never was in disagreement with that, can we say that there are people who have benefited from chattel slavery? So then somebody says, "Well, how'd I benefit? We grew up in the same neighborhood. I make less money than you. I was looked back bad upon you by people that are your color because they made fun of me because I was the only white boy or the only white girl in town." Where do you think they learned it from? And even still, with you being the only white boy or white girl to being dismissed in town, if we went to a Trump rally, who's going to be let in the room first? You or me? If we went to the White House, who's going to be let in first? They're going to look twice at both of us if they're doing their responsibility, but they're looking at me first. People say, "Oh, you just making stuff up." I've been to these places. I know what I'm talking about. If you go in the military, you can say all day long, but see, if you're still in a position, see, my people, let me tell you something. If you're still in a position to where you keep having to say, "Oh, that's the first black general. That's the first black woman general. That's the first black doctor to do. That's the first black SEAL to do. That's the first black person who to teach, as an RDC or as a drill sergeant in this way or that way or whatever. That's the first black female to do this type of surgery. That's the first black male to write this type of book." If you're still in that, my brother, my sister, I'm just telling you, you in a place of wickedness still. If every time you do something, you got to talk about the first, and that being considered, we were doing brain surgery and heart surgeries and stuff 4,000, 5,000 years ago, but they keep telling you, "Oh no, this is the first person to do this and that or whatever." Is it? Right? If you're still in a position where, you know what, this is the first, we need to listen to him. This is the first black person to preach like this. It affects every aspect of life. Yes, it does. Oh, yes, it does. I know you don't want to hear it, but it's real. Yeah, and you invented stuff. This is the first black. He speaks so well. This is the first black person I've heard speak like this. Our sisters talk crazy when the man finally gives respect. This is the first black man to give respect. You got to figure out what kind of evil is in there that has us thinking like this and speaking like this. That's the first black woman I saw that gives respect. When that's still your context, when that's still your concept of everything, we got to have some real conversation. We must have some real dialogue. How you doing, Coco? I mean, if that's what you're looking for, this is the. I mean, seriously, I'm just being honest with you, right? People don't want to hear. This is the first black head coach to win 2 in a row or whatever. That's gonna be, or 2 championships. That's gonna be somebody that's gonna say that one day. Then we still have a problem. If that's all you can think of, if that's all we have as far as our thought process, if that's what we're still dealing in. This is why nationhood is important. I'm telling you, the first time I went back home, and not just for a day or two, not just passing by, first time I went back home and I literally saw nothing but us for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I really think, but 2 weeks. First time I did that, and I realized I had stopped being, I had stopped being afraid of police officers. Not saying there's no corruption over there, but I wasn't scared of police officers. I was scared only one time my whole time, and we were going through a checkpoint because I'm used to checkpoints being where they're trying to get people on stuff. And I went through a checkpoint, and they would just said, "Oh yeah, what's your ID? Okay, cool." And they just kept it moving. It's because I was going from here, I was going over to the Slave Coast to be able to go to Almena Castle and stuff. And then we came back through, and nothing. That's all that mattered the whole time we were there. Is leprosy a sign of a sign? I'm sorry, I missed what I was talking about at that point, Minister Tamer. Is leprosy a sign of a sign? How do you mean, if you don't mind? How do you mean exactly? Because I could probably go a really wrong way in that. I want to know exactly what you're talking about before I get myself in trouble, right? Is leprosy a sign of a sign of sin? Or a sign of sin? Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we can go in different ways with that, and I'll be real quick on it. But you can go a few different ways with that. Yes, biblically speaking, obviously, it could be a sin of somebody coming against the Most High or the Most High's prophet. I mean, that's clear. Leprosy could be a sign of malnourishment, obviously, somebody not eating correctly, which once again, we've established that if we're talking about sin just means to miss the mark. Well, if you're eating wrong and you get leprosy, that obviously can be sin. And therefore, we can talk about that. Leprosy could be a sign of sin as far as, having melanin deficiency or issues with melanin, things of that nature. So yeah, leprosy can definitely be a sign of different things that we're not doing correctly, for sure. So we can definitely talk about that in different ways. Am I quick to say that every time I see somebody, especially if we're talking about, I forget what you call Villalago? Is that how you pronounce it? I always mess it up. If we're talking about Villalago, well, that could be a sign. Now, as far as Cain and their children, Cain was marked, but marked means a tav, right? Tav. So Cain being, matter of fact, see, because if you look in the order of the story, right? Remember, we said we're going to make our story the reference point, right? And the story the foundation, right? Our story be the standard, excuse me, and the story is the foundation. If you look historically speaking, as far as our story, let's just say historically speaking, timeline wise, Cain was marked, right? Now, if we're going to say Cain was made white, we're kind of doing the reverse of what they did to us, which is when they started teaching that Cain was marked, that meant he was made black. Cain was tabbed, he was marked. That's what that word marked means. Just like in Ecclesiastes, they would tab, they would put a tab on their foreheads, right? Or like you see people do with Ash Wednesday, sackcloth and ashes, tab, you mark, right? That being said, Cain was marked, sure. When I'm talking, but also it's not talking about skin color there, because if we look at the timeline, there's somebody else who we would see who I wouldn't necessarily say they had leprosy, but they definitely had some kind of melanin deficiency, right? We know who that is, right? In your Bible, there's somebody, well, we have to go inside the other books of the Bible as well, right? Noah, right? Noah, if you read his description that's given in scripture, it tells you that he was, now we don't know if he was white, like we consider white. It doesn't look like he was probably albino, but it does mention that he didn't look like everybody else as far as his appearance and his color, right? His eyes looked a little off too. And his father, Lamech, actually had to go to his father, Methuselah, and ask Methuselah about it. Methuselah said, oh no, like that's Methuselah's name also means, part of it means that he's going to be the arrow, the one that points to a great sign coming up. So he was the one that told him that Noah is going to be great. Lamech actually didn't deal with his son too well because of this. Also, Lamech wasn't in the truth. So Noah actually was with Methuselah. Remember, Methuselah is the son of Enoch. So Enoch, or Anache, but Enoch, ended up having all the people come under Yahweh who were on the earth. Methuselah took over for Enoch, and after Enoch died, since people were so attached to Enoch, when he died, people started going back into sin. Methuselah then points towards Noah, and Noah, who is Methuselah's son Lamech, doesn't really raise Noah in the truth. So Noah, right, Melchizedek comes after Noah, right? Melchizedek's after Noah, right? Melchizedek is, we're dealing with the time of Abraham, right? But Methuselah, right? So Methuselah and Noah, right? Methuselah and Noah, and Methuselah is teaching his grandson Noah. Methuselah lives up until the flood begins. After that, then Methuselah passes, and so does the book of Jasher specifically, and even the Chronicles of Noah, but the book and also the book of Enoch. But the book of Jasher tells us that all of the people who were of the bloodline going from Noah all the way back to Adam, everybody, including his father Lamech, every one of them passed away before the flood officially came all the way in and wiped out everybody, because Yah made sure that they didn't have to experience what everybody was going to experience because of that bloodline's faithfulness, right? So Methuselah, or sorry, Methuselah is the one we're talking about as far as Noah, but Methuselah points towards Noah and says, even though he doesn't look like us, that's still a sign. Now, Noah's children, we're not 100% sure, but if any child, if you look up how it works DNA wise, the only child that more than likely would have been albino as well would have probably been Japheth, or would have had those genes in him. And so now we see where some of the mixing and matching starts to happen, right? But Ham is literally known as hot because his skin looked like he could handle the heat, right? Sham or Shem, part of his name also means as well, besides name, it also means authorized. It also means that he's carrying something that came even before Noah, and he carries a Shemitic language, even that language his father spoke, but also he carries stuff that his father has brought with him. That's what these names actually mean, whether you like them or not, right? Like, and then when you talk about Yafat, or who we call, Yavat, or who we call Japheth, now, right? Yavat, he was somebody who would have then carried. Now, once again, if you've never read outside of the 66 books, or if you've never read Enoch like that, or the book of Jasher, or Chronicles of Noah, and put those together, then you have a problem, right? Because all you really get out of the Bible as far as Noah is just really saying how faithful he was when nobody was. Just like people talk about Enoch, but don't look to see why is Enoch considered, when it says he then had faith and pleased Elohim, it tells you what happened to Enoch. He went on a spiritual journey and he began to separate from the world, and then he started coming back into the world and teaching them the truth. And then it wasn't until Adam passes away that then Enoch starts separating himself again to then be translated. Right. So a lot of people are coming with misinformation or don't have enough comprehension. Once again, we have facts without context. Right. But leprosy being sin, in some way, shape, or form, I guess all leprosy comes from sin. But does it come from, hey, because you're a bad person, you're going to lose your color? Not necessarily. It could be, once again, the sin of eating wrong. It could be the sin of not getting enough sun. It could be the sin of like sometimes there's flesh-eating viruses that do cause leprosy, depending on what now you're calling leprosy, because there's different types of leprosy, right? But when the Bible's talking about leprosy and talking about somebody becoming white, that's talking about something specific. As far as usually when it's talking about it in the Bible, it's talking about because of sin. So Noah is talked about as being lighter. I don't know how light, but Noah's talked about being lighter. However, he's never talked about as far as being leprous, if that makes sense. He said, so what I say, Enoch was righteous king of his time. That's what the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher declares. It says that everybody on the earth worshipped Elohim because of the teachings of Enoch. Doesn't mean Enoch has never made a mistake before. No. Matter of fact, it starts off by saying Enoch was living, but he was just kind of doing what his son Lamech ended up doing. At first, he came around. He was just kind of doing his thing. He wasn't necessarily bad. He wasn't necessarily trying to be righteous. He was just doing his thing. He had a son, Lamech. All of a sudden, he has a son. He decides that he's going to start being righteous, and he starts living in faith. And it says that his faith pleased Elohim to where he was translated. Almost in the same exact way when you study as Elijah is translated. Yep, Book of Jubilee also. Thank you for that. Yep, says he was perfect. Book of Hebrews talks about his perfection as well. How you doing with mycobacterium? You said it caused, mycobacterium, the braids caused by a bacteria. Yeah, and so sometimes that can happen as well. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on what we're talking about specifically and what we're saying, because sometimes we take, like, you also have to recognize too. So what the English, because that's who we're talking about with this version of the Bible we're saying, or even any version of the Bible that's using the term leprosy specifically, when the English are using the word leprosy, you got to ask yourself in the 1600s, if we're talking about 1611 King James on, in the 1600s, what did leprosy mean to them? Right? Is leprosy talking about flesh-eating virus or this bacteria that's flesh-eating or whatever, right? Like, so even in that, when they describe leprosy, but also too, are they using leprosy as a word that's used the same way we would use it? So there's a lot of different things. That's what I'm saying. It depends on how we're talking about it. But yes, if we're going to say, biblically speaking, whatever Madam had, obviously, if we're going to call it leprosy, then that was because of disobedience, right? Obviously, leprosy can also be healed by relationship with the Messiah, right? We see that in what people call the force of not the Gospels or whatever. I don't know if that title could work for him. Let me see. In all honesty, let's see if that's what culture we're implying there. I'll be honest with you. You hit me with something that I think I've heard it before, but I don't, because I think it's modern Hebrew, right? Yeah. Yeah. So if you're using, that's like it's like an offshoot of Hebrew, right? So yeah. So I get what you're saying there. So they're saying that it's like basically saying my king is Sedek, but that's not necessarily a great translation. But I see what culture kind of sort of, I guess, like what African tribe has kind of been mixed into with some. It sounds like I'm not sure. It sounds like a little bit of Yiddish in there. In that, and I know it's not a Yiddish translation, but it sounds like a little bit of it. But yeah, but my king is select is not really a Sadek is not really a great translation. Like Melchizedek. Well, kind of sort of. So basically, like it should translate to anything to my king is Shalom, my king is peace. Like we're using like, so for example, it can't even be Melchizedek as far as the actual original pronunciation in the original alphabet or Hebrew. We didn't have a ch sound. Now, ch is what people use for the ninth character. The ninth character is supposed to be tet, but a lot of people say it as chet, and they don't say te, they say che. So when you're talking about Melchizedek or Melchiz, which by the way, we don't have that's not proper modern Hebrew anyways. But when you're saying che, right? You're dealing. So if you were to say his name correctly, that should be more like Mache. See, now I got these other things in my head. Hold on one second. It should be more like Ma La Che Za Da Ike, which is like Mim Lamed Tet. I got to get the other pronunciation in my head. Ayin Zion Dalet Ayin Kaf, which means the water, blood, and spirit. I'm going by characters now. The water, blood, and spirit through the shepherd. So the shepherd through the water, blood, and spirit. The water, blood, and spirit. So this proper family or whatever, or even the spiritual family, right? So has a bloodline. This shepherd, Melchizedek, shepherd, right? Ma la te has wisdom in it. Ma la te za, coming from a place of Zion, right? A weapon that also cultivates. Ayin, causing us to see different, to have a different countenance. Dalit being the door. Kaf, keeping us in Yah's hands. That's what his name actually translates to. It took me a minute because I'm used to saying Melchizedek like everybody else, but that's not actually his real. That's actually not his real name, right? But once again, there we go again. We got a fact. We say Melchizedek, but the context, if you get into it, is a lot deeper. So he was the king of Shalom, right? So I see what that breakdown is. So you could say culturally, somebody else that would be the closest they could use as far as translation, but it's not proper interpretation, if that makes sense. Is he an angel? No. Well, so people try to make him an angel in a sense. See, and once again, it comes culturally, right? And these are great questions, by the way. Y'all are like messing with my head, but I like it. right? So this is the stuff as far as culture that's going on, right? If you're going to speak on these things culturally, um, the word angel, as we would put it, does not necessarily mean, first of all, there's a difference between a seraphim, a cherubim, right? But a seraphim or a tadabim, really it should be a tadabim, but a cherubim or a seraphim or an angel. An angel doesn't have wings, for example, right? And an angel is a messenger. So when you see an angel, when the Bible says so and so saw an angel of the Lord, or an angel showed up, or these three men showed up to Abraham, and we think that they might have been angels or whatever, they were angels, or be careful, you might be treating or taking care of an angel unaware. An angel doesn't have wings. So, but also the word angel can be translated into messenger as well, right? Exactly. So there are many angels. That's why even if you go to certain churches, you'll hear people say the angel of this house. They're not saying this person has wings or this person is dead or this person is a spirit. Excuse me, spirit only. They're saying that this person is a messenger. And so as a messenger, that's the conversation. How you doing, Red? Thanks for being a part of the community. So an angel is a messenger. So you could say in a sense, I'm an angel, you're an angel, right? If we are messengers of the Most High, right? But as far as, because people say he's of the order of Melchizedek, whose order has no beginning and has no end. But if he's of the order of Melchizedek, right? And this person, if we're saying this is a messenger and this was a prophet, and also this is the person that Abraham's going to pay a tithe to. People miss that. Abraham pays a tithe so that later on the children of Yashdel will come into the same place. He was the prince of Shalom, the prince of peace, or the king of peace, excuse me, the king of Shalom. And then later on, the prince of peace will come in later on as the order of Shalom, right? The order of peace. And we will live in Yara Shalom going into the new Canaan, right? So it's a different context. So yes, he's an angel, and yes, of his order there is no beginning and end. Why? Because any angel, whether a spirit angel or a flesh and blood angel, any one of them must be of the order of Yahweh, which means that what? Any messenger, we must have no beginning. Our message, especially, should have no beginning and have no end. But as far as your spirit also must have what? No beginning, and it must have no end. If I'm a prophet, or I prophesy, or I speak as Yah's mouthpiece, then guess what? It means that I'm somebody who has no beginning simultaneously, right? What I speak, the word of Yah that I speak, if it's his word, it should be able to affect your past, your present, and your future. Why? Because it must have no beginning and it must have no end. You see, that's the context of it. So Melchizedek, if you look at the story even of Abraham, right, he gives the tithe to him after they're dealing with Lot being taken. And Lot was taken by some of the kings and some of the people that were faithful to these 4 or 5 kings that were forcing everybody of Canaan to pay tribute to them, including people who were with Melchizedek. So Abraham goes and he liberates Lot and his family. And while doing this, that means he liberates all these other people who are having to pay tithe or tribute to these wicked kings. So he has to defeat these wicked kingdoms to be able to ensure that now he can make sure that these people are there and are freed. And then he pays a tithe to Melchizedek, because Melchizedek, although not of the same bloodline, is of the same belief system. There's no such thing as an Israelite yet, and he might not necessarily be a Hebrew. He's a Canaanite, but he still believes in Yah. Just like later on, you'll have Balaam, who's a prophet of the Most High, even if he's not of Yashtael. Right? So we sometimes mix that up too. So there's a lot of different stuff in there. But if you're talking about this, so he goes, when he liberates Lot, he has to liberate all his other kingdoms. And then what he does, because the true king of Shalom, who should have never been paying tribute to anybody else, was technically always Melchizedek, he then gives him what? He then gives him tribute. He then gives him a tithe, and gets a blessing from it, which later on is going to be what? Yashda'el coming into Shalom. So he had paid for his seed that would be multiplied to be able to come into this place of Shalom, which now the capital will be known as, of Yasrael will be known as what? Yara Shalom, right? So the king of Shalom, right, is going to deal with the prince of Shalom, right? Yahashua coming. And in the midst of that, they're going to Yara Shalom. What does Yara Shalom mean? When they name it Yara Shalom means now it's not just Shalom or peace, but Yara Shalom is literally saying Yahweh is the head of peace. So peace was taken from Melchizedek and then by these wicked kings, right? Abraham comes and liberates by liberating Lot, his own people. He ends up liberating everybody. Those who might be grafted in. Come on, somebody, stay with me, right? I know this is boring, but I promise you we're going somewhere. Then from there, you have a tithe that's given to the king of Shalom, because it always should have been under the order of these specific priests who believe this thing. Whether they're Israel yet or not, the priesthood is still something that's there. The word of Yah is still something that's eternal, right? Then from there, you have later on, we come into this place that a tithe was given, something set aside for us called Yara Shalom. Yahweh is now over this place of peace. And now the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Shalom. So you thought that was just in Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. You thought that was just Father. You thought that was just clever. No, right? A child was born, a son was given, the government will be upon his shoulders, and his authorities will be what? I'm about to go out of order. The everlasting Abba, the Prince of Shalom, the everlasting Father, or no, wonderful counselor, the mighty Elohim, the everlasting Abba, and what? And the Prince of Shalom. By the way, when it says it'll be counselor, who is the counselor? Ravak HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. So all of these things are entering in, right? The Father is there over it. The Son, the Prince of Shalom, now comes in, right? The Prince of Peace, and then he passes away and says, or he gives up the ghost, and he said, if I don't leave you, if I were to stay here and I don't leave, he said, then the Comforter cannot come. All three in one have to be involved. See, this is a contextual thing. Once again, though, a lot of people have facts without context. So we at S.O.C. and becoming remembered and coming into membership, we have a belief system that you got to ensure that you're always being contextually factual. Facts without context is not leading us that well, is it? Can you see? Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Can you see that without that context, you could be really lost on that? Or you could be very surface level on that. You could be somebody who's not getting anything that Yah has and wants for you. Right? Like if you're not careful without context, you could be all over the place. This is why if somebody comes to me and they make the argument, you hear people try to make this argument all the time. Well, what do you, or not argument, but they're trying to see if I'll make an argument for what they believe. One of the questions I get real quick all the time, well, what do you feel about the Muslim faith? And I'll be like, well, what are you talking about? Sunni, Shiite, this, that, whatever. They don't even know what I'm talking about. And that's simple, right? But no, what do you think about them? I say, well, if you know about our people, Ishmael is my brother. Like if I come out of Isaac and you come out of Ishmael, our father is Abraham, is he not? Correct. So if you come to a place because we have brotherly issues, like we have issues with brothers and sisters have issues, but that's my brother. So the starting place with Ishmael for me is brotherhood. Now, if we go into some other stuff, sure, we might have to figure some stuff out, or I might have to stand on certain things and say, brother, I can't go down that road with you. But Abraham's still my father, and Ishmael's still my brother. Or if you want to say that I'm Israel, we're fine, and Ishmael is my uncle. Still give respect. He's my uncle because he's my father's brother. And if he's my father's brother, then they both got the same daddy. And if they got the same daddy, I got the same granddaddy. And that means if I've got a child, then that's their great nephew or great niece. We still family at some point. See, this is when you get context, you don't get pulled down certain things that facts alone just get you. Fact, yes, they're Muslim. So what though? That's my brother. That's my sister. That's why we've been involved. That's why we get invited to mosque as much as. Can I be honest with you? We get invited to mosque more than we get invited to churches. You hear what I'm saying? Just keeping it a buck. You know what I'm saying? I get invited to more mosques than I do to churches. You would think it'd be the other way around because I use the Bible with more reference than I do any surah that's coming out of the Torah. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Torah, the Quran. Excuse me. I get invited to more than I go more places there where you got to take your shoes off and stand on holy ground than I do in places to where you're supposed to be holy because of the suit that you wear. So I learned a long time ago, man, like it's not just facts by themselves, it's context. Right. Brother TJ on here is the reason why we're going to be going to visit the land that's over here in Georgia, and it's his connection. That's the reason why we're going to visit the land that's over in Georgia in the first place. See if it's going to be something that we can get. Thank you. If you're listening, babe, it's 11:11. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, and a lot of people were surprised when we say that, Brother TJ, and I wasn't as surprised. But I mean, at one point in my life, when you were telling me some of the stuff, but I wasn't as surprised when you were telling me about the some of the stories when we had a lot more time when we were talking over hours and hours and hours at one point. But I wasn't surprised to hear stuff like that. And then when you read the lost books, a lot of stories that you're talking about, I knew a lot of them, even if I didn't know to the name. But you'd be surprised how many stories are in the Quran that are in your Bible or in your lost books. You would be, yes, you would. A lot of you would be very surprised. Go to the book of Jasher, go to the Quran, you'd be surprised. Oh. Like we did that, which I don't know if we're gonna stay in the book of Jasher for the brothers. I think we kind of gone through a lot of it already and kind of given some homework assignments and stuff enough, but we'll see how the Holy Spirit does it. But yeah, some of the brothers were surprised when I showed them the book of Jasher says this, that, whatever, and then I was like, that's in the Quran, right? This is in the book of Enoch, right? This is mentioned in the Bible, right? That, like, that people before would have been like dumbfounded, but we were raised to doubt ourselves. We knew factually that we were supposed to be spiritual, but we had no context as far as who we were as a nation. See, it hits different, don't it? When you realize that when it says you're a chosen generation, it's talking about you. It's talking about you. It's talking about you. That's different. It hit different. When our babies come on Saturdays, and my wife says, "Who's an Israelite?" and they say, and they raise their hand, they say, "Me." It hits different. You grew up in church going to Sunday school, if you even did that. Some of us didn't. I didn't, right? But those of you who grew up in church for Sunday school and stuff, I promise you hearing about people and saying, "Wow, those chosen people were amazing, and maybe I can be of the same spirit," versus, "Oh, that was us." That's gonna hit different when these babies go. I'm telling you already. If you heard what some of these babies be saying already at 2 years old, 4 years old, 8 years old, 11 years old, 14 years old, 10 years old, if you heard what these babies are saying now, when they hit 2021, I won't mention names because I be messing names up for a long time. It takes me a while to get names. Forgive me. Also, too, though, it might not be none of y'all business, so I won't put everybody's business out here because these are babies I'm about to mention. But when I see these 2 girls that be coming on somebody's mama, right, and I'll just leave it at that, right? So y'all, if y'all come to it and y'all children participate, y'all know who I'm talking about. These two girls, they be on it, and they listen to live sessions and stuff too, and they be contacting me, and they started sending me videos talking about watch this and stuff because they heard somebody saying something that was similar to us. They asking questions, right? Little 4-year-old girl coming on there and making sure it. She don't care if she late or not. She gonna make sure everybody knows. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Tada. How's everybody doing? This is my testimony. The babies, I'm not gonna tell you what their testimonies were, but the baby and the adults too. But the babies was out here telling their testimonies, and I'm talking about powerful. Matter of fact, we were talking about miracles. And my wife asked the question, what are some miracles that happened to you? And these babies started saying some miracles. When I talk, and I'm talking about, and I know, and I'm not even 100% sure because I wasn't looking, I was listening. So I'm not sure whose baby it was. I think I know who it was, but I might be wrong. But I want whoever's mama is attached to that baby, right? Or whoever's auntie is attached to that baby, because I'm not 100% who it was. But don't be embarrassed by that baby's testimony, whoever that was. That testimony, and you know which one I'm talking about, right? There were a few of them. These babies was coming out, and I was like, wow. And then the mothers was coming out and saying some testimony too. But these babies was out here saying some stuff. And I'm telling you, like, and I could feel like in my spirit, I was kind of like, I hope the parents not embarrassed, because the baby was saying some real stuff. Like, this happened, and this happened with my family, and this happened with my parents, and this blah blah. And I thought I was sad, and I was depressed, and I didn't think I'd get this, and I was sitting there, and I was like, this is kind of long, but also too, I loved that they were airing this stuff out. How you doing, Nikki? Like, they were getting all that stuff out. Like, they were having a healing moment. right? Because somebody was helping them to see that all this stuff that happened, it was a miracle that they went through all this stuff and still got everything that God has for them, and then some more is still coming, right? They finished it up real quick, but for real, I knew the baby. I don't want to. I can't say it without giving the baby's information, but that baby was getting ready to go into some other stuff that they were saying they were still waiting for. You know what I'm saying? Like that baby was going. So I just want to say, whoever that was, I don't know 100% sure. I wasn't looking at that time at the screen. I was listening, but as I was listening, I had to stop what I was doing, and I was going into praise. Sorry, hopefully y'all still there with us. I was going into praise. I was going into praise and worship. Listen to that baby. So if that baby listen, baby girl, if you listening, like that testimony is powerful, and that miracle that you are, right, is powerful. But I mean, and I could hear the other person, that I could hear the parent, or if it was the auntie. Once again, I don't know who it was, but I could hear somebody being like, it was a little much. It might have felt like it was a little much, but it was right on time. How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Maya. Please check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. How you doing, Sister Lenora? Um, Welcome, greetings. So I was saying all this once again, facts. Facts without context are dangerous. Why? Because if we have truth, if we have facts, but they don't have context, it becomes propaganda. A lot of people are in the propaganda business, the propaganda movements. They're not trying to give you the reality, right? Facts. You can have surgery and look like a male if you were born a female. Context. There are health problems that come with it. Facts. You can do that. Context. There's a bunch of people in England right now who are begging and pleading if they can find a way to have it reversed, or if they can sue the people that did to them, or even sue their parents because their parents allowed for it to happen. Some parents, they even feel like they were pushed into it. Some of them, they feel like the government pushed them into it. There's more to it. Facts. You can be this, but context. You got to learn how to deal with the emotions of men, because men, we don't operate the way that women do. And so you're dealing with hormone imbalances because you're physiologically a female. You're also dealing with stuff to where, yeah, men don't treat you like women did. You could be we talked about this earlier. You could be in the bathroom and you can talk to another girl, and y'all can have y'all stuff in there where you powder in your noses. We don't powder our nose. If I go in the bathroom, and watch this, especially if there's no separation of the urinals, no separating, no in between, no stalls, if you will, mini stalls for the urinals. I promise you, I'm not standing next to another guy. I'm not standing next to another guy. Right? It just is what it is, right? I don't even like sitting in a stall next to another guy. Right? It's a different context. We just live different. We have emotions. We have emotions. But just because my try to, there are guys that try to start up conversations in there, and everybody, when they hear the guy starting a conversation, we look at them like they weird. Matter of fact, we try not to look at them. Matter of fact, if you sitting there, then somebody got their thing out, and you got your thing out. You don't want nobody looking. You don't turn. That's why you don't turn your head. Why would I turn my head? You got your stuff out. If I was going down the street, some guy had his stuff out, I wouldn't turn to look. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I'd be trying to avert everybody's eyes. Baby, look away, look away. You know what I'm saying? Right? So why would, if I'm in but once again, who designed your bathroom stalls? You didn't design them. I don't feel comfortable. I told people this before. I told my wife, I don't like using, especially going number two. Not just because it can be disgusting. I just don't like going to use the restroom in public places unless I know the bathroom's by itself. I don't like being in a place where other guys are. I'm not saying every other guy feel like that. I'm saying I don't. I gotta really go. If I'm using the public restroom, I gotta really be needing to go. Really be needing to go. You hear what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I don't. That might be a personal thing. That might not be a manhood thing. That might be a Kofi thing. But I'm just saying. I don't just be rolling up and, oh, okay, we are here, whatever. Especially if I got to go number two or whatever. Like, I feel vulnerable and stuff like that. I'm just being real. I don't just roll up and whatever. Forget if it's nasty, this, that, whatever. I'm talking about just straight up. I have to feel like if I go in there, nobody's in the use. Like, I will sit there in the bathroom, standing there, waiting for everybody to leave, and then go in there, make sure I'm in like the stall furthest away, make sure, of course, the door is locked and everything. And then if people come in, I can't go. I just can't, right? I remember in the military when we had to do urinalysis and you had to have somebody watch you and stuff. Like I had to drink so much water. If I be honest, well, if I be honest with you, one time I got in trouble because I drank alcohol too, because I got to do something that makes my bladder burst, basically, just about. Like I can't, if I don't use it, I'm going to pee on myself. And then even still, it took me like 20 seconds or so to finally just be like, I have no choice. I have to use it. So I would always be on the day that especially when they did the random urinalysis, I would be like the last person of the day because, and they would be trying to think I was hiding something. I was literally drinking water to the point all day and trying my best, like to go and go and go and go, right? Because I couldn't do it. It'd take me 8, 9 hours just to be able to do that. Anyways, that's TMI. But long story short, it's a cultural thing, right? So don't come into somebody else's mindset or culture or sexuality, even if you will, sex, marital stuff, whatever, and you don't come with the context. Men are different. Is ultimately what I was trying to say. Men are different. We just are, and there's no offense to anybody. We're just different. We're built different for a reason. There are things that you are supposed to do that we can't, and there's things that we're supposed to do that you can't. That's why we need each other. And if we were okay with needing each other, then a lot of the stuff that we're arguing about would go away. Have you ever thought about that? Here's the fact. You're designed to become one. So you gotta start asking yourself what context is stopping you from becoming one. That's I'll put that out there for free. What happens is your questions are really far behind me, sometimes like 10, 20, 30 seconds behind me. So I'll get into something else and then either I don't catch it or, but I apologize, Brad. You said, is the book of Enoch something to stay away from? I think the book is fine. The problem with the book of Enoch is that so many people are using different things, reference point to describe it. But yeah, it's the book of Enoch is something to that we can use. How you doing, brother Ali? All right, how you doing, Bevy baby doll? So that's all I got for today. That's all I have for today. I thank you guys. If you're on TikTok with us, if you've never done a shout out with us, we're going to do our shout out in a second. Our shout out is something that's something we do just for you guys to give you a chance to be able to become more community, but also to um, learn more about what we do offline. Not everything that we do is just based on the live sessions only, whether it be classes, meetups, conversations, time, talent, effort, energy that we put towards stuff, meetups, whether I'm there physically or not, or somebody else is there. We have people that are all over the United States of America that are popping up in different countries, even more so now than what they used to. So we appreciate it. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see me and this. But thank you guys for being on. I really, really appreciate you guys very much. And thank y'all for being on. We're going to get ready to do our shout out in a little bit. If you've never done the shout out with us, once again, just stick around on TikTok and we'll involve everybody in a little bit. Thank you guys again. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. I will prayerfully see everybody this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. We'll be on Kofi_40, the original page, not on Kofi_43, this one, or Kofi_42. We'll be on Kofi_40. And we look forward to seeing you guys later on tonight. So thank you for being on. We appreciate you. Tomorrow will be Q&A. So tomorrow will be Q&A for us. So on Q&A, we're asking, so we've been going over membership all this time. So tomorrow we want you to come on and let her rip. Everything that you got, everything you got for us, everything, all your questions, all your comments, all your concerns concerning membership especially, but even if you have others, like I said earlier when we started, we would love for you to have questions, even if they're not your questions, even if they're questions other people bring up or other things that people ask all the time. We would really like to be able to have you guys on here with us and go through these questions today. All right. We appreciate you. We honor the King, Queen, each and every one of you. Please check out my wife, as always, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you. If you're on TikTok, once again, stick around for our shout out. We think you'll enjoy it if you've never been on before. And until I have the next opportunity, a chance of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yashadam, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. See you later. To those of us that are still on TikTok, this is how the shout out works.